We do have quorum, Ethan.
Great, thank you. Let's go ahead and you want to start an agenda review for us, John?
Yeah, today is, as usual, mostly informational items. We just have one action item being the minutes. We really want to ground ourselves today as we start off this meeting of coming back to the CalSAWS Gantt chart and review that Gantt chart. We have a lot of things that are happening as we go through this next year. And it's a very, very tight schedule. And we want to be able to review that. Diane's going to give an update on a really good set of decisions that our Cal-Win counties made on their go live dates and some decisions that have been made. And then a lot of the rest of the meeting is going to be spent focused on our risks and where we're at with our risks. As I've said before, we are definitely using our risk and issue management process in order to bring transparency, let you know the things that we're looking at, trying to get more and more specific on the information we need to bring forward to be able to demonstrate our readiness for each one of the phases that we have that are coming up. So we're going to be spending a lot of time on our risks, our risk mitigation, and really bringing more information forward to the counties to be able to, I think, answer those questions that have been asked, and I think some of that information is going to be coming forward today. So we'll look at the risk and the mitigation plans, and then we're going to look specifically for wave one on where we're at and go through a few other items. We are going to also talk about LA County preparation for the for going to both BenefitsCal and imaging. Last month, I gave you an update that said, hey, we're scheduled to go live on March 14th. We've made the decision hand in hand with LA County to push off the implementation of imaging and in turn BenefitsCal until April 25th to allow more time for testing, regression testing, and for LA County to make sure that their user base is fully prepared. And that does not adversely impact our schedule for the Cal-Win rollout. So we're going to talk through that and where we're at on that, and really getting some of the defects that are in production taken care of for our 39 counties and in turn Los Angeles. So we're going to talk again about reports is an important one. We had so much policy going on. Karen and Lisa will talk about that. And in conjunction, we have procurement, and Tom will give you an update on some important milestones coming up for procurement. And we have some time for our QA project manager, Dan Dean, to give you an update on the important role they play and some of the activities that they have, as well as Kayleen Lyman from IVNB. And then we always like to hear from our state partners and our counties to wrap it up. So once again, Ethan, a full agenda.
Yes, sir. Yes, it is. All right. So now is a public opportunity to speak on items that are not on the agenda. Public comments are limited to no more than 3 minutes per speaker, except when a speaker is using a translator, and that individual will be allowed up to 6 minutes. The public may also speak on any item on the agenda by waiting until the item is read, then requesting recognition from the co-chair to speak. All lines will be muted during the meeting or as the meeting begins. To unmute, I think we should all know this. It's the unmute button and then *6, and the guilt of all of us, we are double muted sometimes, so please be aware you may be double muted. Okay, and on that, is there anybody from the public who would like to speak on any off agenda items this morning? Okay, hearing none, move into action items and potential approval of the meeting minutes.
Very good, thanks, Ethan. These are the minutes from February 16th. If you go to page 7, we have a couple of action items. And it looks like we lost our PowerPoint deck. Everybody can still hear me, correct?
Yes.
Okay, very good. If you go to page 7 of your minutes, we have a couple of standard open items. First one is on recruitments. So Holly, are you there?
I'm here, John.
And
So
before Holly hops off, one of the things she's going to talk about is some of our open positions we're doing recruitments for, and give you an update. One of the positions she's going to give you an update on is that we do have our application development and test consortium section director position that's going to be open. And Joanne Osborne, 40 years in health and human services, over 40 years, is coming up in June. So we'll have lots of time to wish her well, is going to be retiring. And she's given us a lot of advance warning so we can have some overlap in time. But that is one of the positions that is open that Holly's going to mention. So I didn't want to surprise anybody, and to be the first to thank Joanne. And we'll have more time to wish her well as we go through the next several months here. Go ahead, Holly. Sorry.
that's okay. Thanks, John. Yeah, so yesterday we issued CIT 7722 to recruit for actually 6 different positions. The first, as John mentioned, is backfill for our consortium section director, Deb and test director. We also have some implementation and training coordinator positions as per our staff loading plan that we now need to fill. We have 2 other backfill positions. One is a business analyst position for CalWin in the CalHears area, and also backfilling a security analyst. And then we are also looking to extend some of our existing business analysts, and we'll be reaching out to specific county directors as the process. And that's it, John. Thanks.
Thank you, Holly. Action item 2 is an ongoing item on analytics. I think we're going to be talking about that later on in our agenda. Item 3 is update on DEI activities and initiatives. That is not on this agenda, but it will be on a future agenda. And then getting to the back page, page 8, we did have some closed action items. We had one on training team will establish a retrospective sort of feedback loop, and we'll provide training materials for induction trainings. We know all the counties, as they're going to CalSAWS and things like that, are looking at how they do induction training. So June, you want to give a quick update on that?
Yeah, good morning. This is June Hutchison, and we are going to be issuing a couple of communications out to the counties. The first one will be a CIT that will provide the locations and a sample list of what is available for training materials across the project. So that will include what is available on the LMS, on the web portal, and any other options available. So it will not be a comprehensive list, because we don't intend to send you a 50-page CIT, because there is a lot of material out there, but we will be providing you information and links so that your staff can go and look at the different items that are available. The second item that we will be sending is a CRFI, and this relates to the induction materials that John spoke about, that we will be asking the current counties that are using CalSAWS if they have induction materials that they are willing to provide and share out to other counties. So we will be sending that CRFI. So if you have materials that you are using today in CalSAWS to train your new staff, then we will be looking forward to you volunteering to share that information, and then we'll have a place posted on the web portal where we can put that and everybody can share with the complete power of 58 here. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Jen. Appreciate it. And We know that would spend a very important action items for the counties and for executives as you bring on new staff, what's available in the interim as you look to bring them up to speed. Action item number 9, Mike or Luz, are you out there? Do you have a quick update on MFA when access to Outlook and webmail are not available?
Good morning, everybody. Yes, so we'll be presenting on this topic next month. CRFI will be going out to the counties for them to opt in to receiving text messages, but we'll provide more information coming next month.
Very good. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
Sure.
And then Arnold, we know that LA is going through some training and things like that. I think there was some request to see if there was some sharing that could go on.
So any of the training materials that have been developed for LA are available to all of the counties through the LMS system. So we also have the user guides and the CITs that have been distributed and will continue. And so we have enhanced communications, especially as additional defects are being fixed and workarounds are being decommissioned. That is going out as information flow to all of the regions and the counties and the end users.
Very good. Thanks, Arnold. And I think that enhanced communication is helping stay on top of those things as well. So we will close off that action item unless there's any objections from PSC. And with that, Ethan, I think that closes up our action item review, and these are open for PSC consideration.
Do we have anybody who would like to make a motion to approve the minutes from February 16th?
This is Winna. I move that we accept the minutes from the February 16th meeting.
This is Albert in San Diego, now second.
Very good. Clarissa, you approve?
I approve, John.
Thank you. Jesse?
I approve.
Thank you. Ethan?
I approve.
Thanks. Rachel?
I approve.
Very good. Cindy?
Yes, I approve. Thank you.
Thank you. James?
I approve.
Excellent. Sandra?
I approve.
Thank you. Luther?
Approve.
Very good. Nympha, have you been able to join us yet? Okay. Motion passes.
All
I
right,
think that
go ahead
brings us
and-
to our informational items. Ethan, back to you.
All right, great. Let's go ahead and start off with item number 5, CalSAWS Gantt chart review.
So as we look forward with CalSAWS, obviously there are a number of items that are coming up in the short term. And so the first is around, we have the 2203 release that is going in this upcoming weekend. And then we're also preparing for LA Imaging go live on the Highland solution on April 25th. And that will also include the cutover and decommission of the YBN application and the move to BenefitsCal for LA County. Outside of that, we're continuing to we're continuing to focus in on the conversion preparation, the execution of conversion data testing, and as well as the CalWIN prep and supporting the Deloitte team and ISS with those CalWIN counties. So all of that is, of course, rolling up to our wave 1 and with our Yolo, Placer, and Contra Costa, followed by wave 2 in February, wave 3 in April 2023, wave 4 in June of 2023, wave 5 in August 2023, and then culminating with the wave 6 in October of 2023. So as what we'll be doing regular releases throughout the course as we address new policy that comes through, in addition to preparing for the CalWIN conversions.
Thanks, Arnold. Good morning, everybody. Wanted to give a update on BenefitsCal and then the efforts around CalWIN ISS. We have a couple of key items coming up in the next couple of months for BenefitsCal. We have a release scheduled at the end of April, which is release 3 that will provide 3 new features. One is we're going to be introducing the next release of our threshold languages at the end of April. There will be 3 that will be remaining that will be a fast follower in the month of May, which will be Ukrainian, Thai, and Yen that will follow in May. Also in April, we're going to be releasing the income reporting threshold functionality, and then also the counties will get some new ad hoc reporting capabilities as well. We have the LA Go Live that is coming up in April as well that we're anxiously looking to bring on Los Angeles County onto BenefitsCal. And then later on in the summer in July, we have release 4. And we talked about last month that release 4 scope has been changed a bit to accommodate some new priority items that are slated for this coming September. So release 4 is going to be primarily focused for the counties to have that ability to do the 2-way messaging as an option for each of the counties as part of release 4. And then we have the new release that is coming up starting in September that will allow for the release of information to be shared, along with some new student exemptions that will be available in BenefitsCal that customers could submit to the counties. As well as a CBO referral URL. So there's some good work that's coming up in the next couple of months to continue to expand what we have in BenefitsCal. We could move to the next slide. I'll give a little bit of an overview about CalWIN ISS, and I'm going to touch on some of these when we get into the risk. So just wanted to highlight a couple of areas. The team is continuing to work with the CalWIN counties on their 2B efforts. We were just working through wave 4, and we'll be starting waves 5 and 6 within the next 4 to 6 weeks across the two waves. There is some effort to go back on some pending decisions from some earlier waves that the counties need to work with our team to close out. So there were some pending decisions on changes in their business process that we're going to be going back and doing another reconciliation on that effort. The team is working right now on our first change readiness survey went out to a number of counties to get the initial baseline, and there will be ongoing updates on the readiness activities to see how we're progressing and preparing for the change within the counties. I'm going to talk a little bit about change discussion guides when we do get to one of the risks. So I'm going to hold off on that one for now. On training, the activities right now are largely focused on developing the instructor-led training curriculum, and that's been presented to the TAC for early feedback to get some feedback on that early feedback on the instructor-led training curriculum, as well as on the overall training approach. So there's been some ongoing dialogue around that. And then in the implementation support piece, I'm going to touch on when I also get to talk a little bit about risk 262. So we'll hold off on that one. And I'm going to turn it back over to Ethan. That's the update for the Gantt charts.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions from PSC members? Okay, any questions from the public? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to item number 6, CalWIN Go Live dates by wave.
Thank you, Ethan. Good morning, everyone. I am very excited to inform this committee of the cutover dates that were decided upon by each CalWIN County wave. And you can see those dates in this chart on this slide. So to provide a little bit of background for this group as to how these decisions were made, last fall, last fall, the project conducted a technical assessment regarding the various batch processes that would need to be run in CalWIN prior to conversion and cutover. From that assessment, the project recommended a cutover weekend be targeted for the last weekend of the month. When we presented that to our operations committee, our OPAC committee, they asked us for a more business-focused impact analysis, which we we then conducted and came up with basically 2 options for each wave for them to decide upon. Those options were option 1, which is cut over the next to last weekend of the month, and option 2, the last weekend of the month. We also created some Q&A papers and just overall options and recommendations. So those were provided to each wave. And the important thing about this is all the counties in each wave had to agree upon the same weekend, whether it was the next to last weekend or the last weekend. So they met internally and had those discussions among themselves. And then we scheduled meetings with each of the wave. So each of those waves then made a final decision on which cutover weekend to target. So this chart reflects those decisions, which are the dates the project is using as the implementation timeline. We are also communicating these dates with our various interface partners, such as CalHERS and MEDS and DHCS and all the other various state interface partners. So with that, I'll turn that back to you, Ethan. So we're very excited that we now have dates.
Thank you. Are there any questions about the dates from PSC members?
This is Albert in San Diego. I have no questions, but I do would like to thank again the counties in our wave. We did have a discussion, you know, we at the beginning, we were split 50-50 on our decision. However, again, it was a good discussion with us all. I think we reached some consensus. Thank you. I know we were one of the counties that for business operations really needed to go with option 2, and the counties in our wave, you know, they heard us out, and some of them, you know, changed their date to help us meet our needs here in San Diego. And I just want to voice that and share that with all. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Albert.
Well, hi, this is Cindy. I'm not sure if maybe I missed that. I'm sorry if I did. I'm not sure I understand the options. And if you went over that, I apologize. So is this, can you explain that again if you already did?
Sure, Cindy. So there were 2 options that we looked at for a cutover weekend. So one is the next to last weekend of the month. And the second one is option 2 is the last weekend of the month.
And these were the option, we're indicating here the options that these counties have chosen.
Correct.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good question, Cindy. Any other questions from PSC members? Okay. Questions from the public? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to item number 7, updates on key risks and mitigation plans.
Hey, Ethan, this is John. Before we hop right in, I probably should have said this up front. On the agenda is marked Greg Elston for this. Greg is, for personal reasons, taking a leave of absence from the project, and Arnold Malvik, who we know, who's been on the project for over 14 months now, is going to be stepping into that Accenture delivery executive role as we go forward, and he's of course backed up by his team and things like that. So you're going to be seeing much more of Arnold as we go forward. So I'll turn it over to Arnold and Rachel on this.
Thank you, John. So as we look at our overall risks, there's going to be several of these that we're going to be having a deep dive on. So I won't be spending a lot of time going through those. For those that we aren't doing the deep dive in subsequent topics, I'll give a bit of an overview with Rachel's help on these. So risk 236 and 237 is really focused on the analytics dashboards as well as the batch scheduling and being able to have those populated within the expected time frame when we have the 58 county load. So for both of those risks, the teams have action plans and are actually currently implementing plans where they are streamlining both flows for both the analytics as well as the batch and making performance enhancements even as we speak, and shortening those batch windows so that as the incremental waves of counties come on, we will still be able to meet those SLAs for the update of the data. As far as 256 is concerned, the imaging scalability, performance degradation, I'll be spending more time in another topic later on this morning, going into a deep dive on the progress that has been made there with our performance tests. Issue 248, or I'm sorry, risk 258 is the CalWIN conversion, the 84-hour cutover window. The team is putting together the flow for that, and the wave one mock conversion test will be able to confirm what those assumptions are as we look at the timing for those 3 counties coming on and where that falls within that 84-hour window. So the team has an action plan and is in progress to gather the data through that first mock conversion test. We move on to the next slide, please. For 262.
This one is mine, Arnold.
That's right.
Yeah, 262, I'm going to cover in a deeper dive later, but just at a high level, what this is included is we've heard from the counties, the feedback that we need to be providing some more specific information so that the counties are prepared, and we need to do it timely so that the counties are ready for that October date. So I will cover that in a little bit. 263, Arnold, I'll turn that one back to you.
Yeah, so 263 has to deal with converted data test defects. We're going to be having CalSAWS deep dive on those a little bit later, but it's really going to be how we're aligning on the burn down for those defects as we prepare for golden data sets 6 and 7. So we'll let Keith do additional deep dive there. Let's move on to slide 16. So Rachel, 268 and 269, I'll let you talk to.
Yeah, 268. So we have a number of risks. There are 8, I'll call them, there are 8 risks that have in this overarching risk 268 that we're using to track around the overall readiness from not just the counties, but also the project collectively. And so we're using 268 to do that. And how 268 is resulting in how we're going to be mitigating that. Each of the individual risks that Arnold and I are talking about have their own mitigation plans that we are tracking and monitoring. The team is also working through, for each of the individual risks that Arnold and I are speaking to, specific items that we're using around checkpoints and criteria to determine whether or not we've actually achieved and mitigated that risk sufficiently, or if there are any types of alterations that we need to make in order to mitigate that risk more fully. And then the last item around 268, as all good project management involves, is to develop a contingency plan that in the event one of the other risks that we're talking about does come to fruition as an issue and has an impact, what does that contingency look like? So there's some preliminary planning that is underway around that contingency. It's just, I'll say, part of the standard project management practice. 269, we have also heard from the counties that there has been a need to provide more detailed information around reports refactoring work. And there's going to be a bit of an update on that one as well. That we're going to talk to in a little bit about ad hoc reports. Last month, we had talked about in a series of education sessions that are coming up, that there is also the opportunity for the counties to be able to do a comparison between the existing reports in CalSAWS and what the reports are that the counties have in their counties, and then a little bit about what support is available. So those are ongoing activities, but we'll talk about that a little bit more later as well. We could move to the next slide, 270. I'll cover this one as well. I'm going to touch on this one in detail in a couple of sections upcoming. But what this is involving is we had provided some preliminary looks at the change discussion guides and received some initial feedback from the counties. And I'm going to share what we've heard from the counties and how we're responding to that feedback that's come from the counties. We could go to the next slide. Arnold, these two are yours.
Right, so 264 Calwin waves may not complete their imaging migration readiness activities by the designated wave go live dates. So the team has looked at all three, and we're focusing on wave 1 to begin with, but for all 3 counties, we have detailed milestones, and right now all 3 counties are on track for that. In addition, the performance testing that we're doing for the 58 county load in preparation for the LA go live will also validate that the system will be able to scale to handle those. So we are very specific items around the imaging configuration guides that we are working with the ISS team to work with the counties as well to mitigate this risk. As far as 267 around GAGR, UAT and county data validation, this has really been focused around completing the GAGR development efforts, and additional resources have been added to the team, and additional CFR timeframes, or we've accelerated the timeframes for the CFRIs to gather the county input on this. So right now, this is currently on track. We move on to the next slide. I can hand it back to Ethan.
Okay, great, thank you. Are there any questions or comments from PSC members?
Hi, Ethan. This is Clarissa.
Clarissa?
Just a quick question, a quick comment, first of all. Thank you so much for taking the time to go through the risks in a little bit more detail, and I look forward to our discussion on the deeper dive on the 2 of the major risks as we go live, as the Calwin counties go live. So I want to acknowledge that first and foremost. I know at the regional managers meeting, we talked about it extensively. So thank you so much for doing this. I do have a question, Arnold, for risk number 258. Can you talk about that risk a little bit more and how your mitigation strategies respond to that risk?
Certainly. So on that conversion cutover risk, what the team is doing is they do have the data that coming out of the C4 conversion. So there are some relations there, but it's also important to realize that Calwin does represent another data source with a dissimilar data schema, which means the database that Calwin runs on is different than the database that CalSAWS runs on. So there's more what we call transformation that's required for that data. So that is what the team is doing, is focusing in on the amount of time that it's taking to export that data out of Calwin, do the transformation, and do the import. And so right now we're going through the tuning process on paper to understand each of those, to say, how do we compress the amount of time frame for each of those stages? And then that paper exercise will be validated during that wave 1 mock conversion, because we're going to be running a series of basically tests to where we run the entire conversion process as though it is the conversion weekend. And we'll be able to see what the actual performance is at that point in time. So that is the approach of analyzing and looking at and tuning it as we can as we're developing those conversion processes. And then we'll be running through that mock conversion to say what the actual timing is, and then we'll take further tuning opportunities after that.
And Clarissa, we will be bringing back that data to Project Steering Committee as we do those tests and those runs, if there's further tuning and where we're at. And I also know that the ISS team during that 84-hour window will be working with the counties to make sure that you have business continuity plans that you're using and having in place during that 84-hour window. And if it is a little bit longer than 84 hours and things like that, that you have procedures and processes in place to be able to do that. So that is part of the documentation and data that will be feeding into each wave's green light process, and an important thing for the counties to consider as we look at readiness to go live. So as Arnold said, right now they're working on sort of the tabletop math going through that, and then it's validating those things with the full load of data as it gets loaded in, and then reporting back out, and then doing further tuning.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you, Clarissa. Any other questions from PSC members? Okay, hearing none. Any members of the public? Okay, we're going to move on to the next item, conversion risk update, statistics and goals, wave 1 and beyond.
Okay, CalSAWS here, overall conversion manager. Thanks, Ethan. So today we wanted to walk through a number of slides in terms of where we're at with conversion cutover. And a lot of this goes to risk 236, or sorry, 263, that was just talked about a few minutes ago. But what we'll do first is we'll anchor from this slide and provide a little bit of where are we at today and where do we expect to be. And so there really are 3 areas that I want to focus on here today. First and foremost, this is a mantra that both Paul Trisler, my conversion manager cohort on the consortium side, we continue to say and make sure that counties understand this. 100% of your cases are going to convert. They are converting now when we execute our conversion runs, and I'll explain what that means in a second here. And we plan or project that it'll continue to do so. And how can I say that? Well, to date, we have delivered approximately 5 golden data sets. And what a golden data set is, it is a conversion run of the CalWIN data for wave 1 specifically. That's what we're obviously targeting initially. So the first 4 were wave 1 specific. We did a number 5, and that represented all of the counties. And so that's why I said we did about 5. We're in the process of doing our 6th one right now, and that's planned to be complete by the end of next week. And what we see in those runs is 100% of the cases are converting. And so we don't expect that to drop. So that's a positive thing, because what that will mean for the counties is you will see all of your cases. There may be some fallout within the cases, some of the data, but we will have reports, and I'm going to talk about that as the last one here in a second. The next, in terms of data quality, is the converted data testing, and that is occurring now, and it started back in November. Risk 263 was created because of the high volume of defects that we're seeing out of this testing effort. I wouldn't be alarmed. We expected a lot of defects, but there are a lot of defects, and it takes us time to triage those and really understand, is this a problem with the application, or is it a problem with the data interacting with the application? And these are items that we want to know now versus identifying in the summer during UAT or after go live. So this is a very rigorous test. It's a very well thought out and planned test, and it's one we need. And so it's giving us a lot of good insight here. Where we're at today, we have executed 85% of the overall converted data test scripts, and we plan by the end of May that we'll be 100% complete there. And on the next slide, I'll kind of talk to where we're at and where we plan to be with respect to those defects that are still outstanding today. The last is auto case review. Some of you may have heard this, that the name has changed a bit. We've called it ADBC Match. We've called it Case Review Badge. It really represents a auto run of your cases to essentially remove the workload from the counties so that they won't need to review those cases post go live. At its very high level, what we'll do with every case that converts or migrates over to CalSAWS is we'll put a yellow banner on the top of that case, 100% of the cases. And what we want is for anytime that banner is on the case, we want the counties to review, caseworkers to review it and then run ADBC before our respective batch shops pick it up. The process here with auto case review is we can go through a match process and we run ADBC and we compare it to the previous ADBC and we match on approximately 10 different items. benefit amount, aid code.
I would be like whoever the hiring person was would send an email to the other managers to say, hey,
statuses.
join me.
Sorry, I think somebody may need to go back on mute.
Mr. Gonzalez, can we get you on mute, please?
Share it with our teams and tell them not, not to share it outside of that. I'm not. Oh.
I think he's on mute now. Okay, so thank you, appreciate that. So what we can go through here.
I wouldn't just be like, oh.
Sorry. What we have been going through is a process where we can compare those 9 items, and if they all match, we can remove the case banner, the yellow banner, and that means caseworkers will not need to review those cases post go live. Where we're at today is we're at a 57% match on those 10 items. Where we want to be is around 70-75%, and that's our goal. We feel very confident that we'll be able to get there. We have a number of items that we're working on that gives us that trajectory to get to the 70-75%. And we think this will be a huge benefit to the counties after we go live. So we're really looking forward to this. And I've got a little bit more data below that can highlight some of what we're doing here. So if it's okay, let's move on to the next slide. Thank you. What this slide represents is the converted data test defects that are known to us as of today, as of right now. And what we're looking at prioritizing is really 3 things here. Number 1, priority 1 defects that have been identified. We want to make sure that we complete those, and we currently are on schedule to complete those before the end of converted data testing. And that, as I mentioned before, the end of converted data testing is planned for the end of May. And so we are on plan for that, and we'll continue to make that progress. On priority 2 defects, our plan is by our golden data set number 8, and I'm going to explain what that one is in a second here, but by golden data set number 8, once again, that's a converted data set, we want to have our priority 2 defects that are known to us today. We want those resolved in that delivery, and currently we're on schedule for that. And what that really means is for that golden data set number 8, that will be the delivery that we will use for a converted data validation. I think a little bit later on today, we may talk a little bit more about validation efforts, but suffice to say, we will invite counties to come in and take a look at their data. This will be wave 1, and we'll do it by wave respectively. But for this delivery, we want to make sure that number 1, priority 1 defects are resolved. Check. Priority 2 defects will be resolved as well, and we're planning on checking off that as well. So this will be a good opportunity for those counties that come in and take a look. And just to see, the intent of that review is, do their cases look right? And we did this with C4, and it was a huge benefit for the counties to take a look at it. Lastly, priority 3 and priority 4 defects. Those are ones where in the system you can do a workaround. So we don't have those at the highest priority to get resolved by the end of CDT or by golden data set number 8. But our trajectory here and our plan is we want to have those complete before we go live. And what it looks like right now in terms of how we're measuring our progress, we should have all those complete by the end of summer. These are the items that are known to us today, and so this is what our current status is. So we're looking good to get all of these resolved, and high confidence that we will be able to do so. Let's move on to the next slide. This slide here, and we talked about the auto case review. It's a bit of a current plan and where we want to be. As you can see here, the months that I have before go live really represents the T- or the months to go live before we go live. We started this process for EDBC match in terms of tracking our progress about 12 months before, and that was in October of 2021. And we're continuing to run it on with each of our golden data set deliveries. And as you can see, as I mentioned before, we're at 57%, and our trajectory, or at least our projection, is planning to get us somewhere between 70 and 75%. As I mentioned, we have a number of items that we're working on, continue to identify areas of improvement here. As I mentioned, we have a high confidence we're going to get to this. So we'll continue to track this and provide metrics as we can to this group and others if necessary. Let's go to the next slide. Just a couple of points here. How did we get to the 70 to 75%? Because you may be asking yourself that. There's some methodology behind that. If we look at the history of our conversions, when we did the CalSAWS to C4 back in 2009, we didn't have auto case review. What that really meant for the counties is they had to review 100% of their cases. Daunting, we understand. When we did the leader to LRS, we came up with this process of auto case review, and that really reduced that review from 100% down to 18% when they went into their pilot. And then just this past year, when we did the C4 to CalSAWS, we reduced it to only 14% of the cases would require a review after go live. So we feel like this is a hugely important effort for us to do for the counties. We think it will certainly, hopefully, reduce the load on them after go live, recognizing there's a lot to do. As I mentioned, the remaining cases, we will match to 70-75%. Those that do not match will have a yellow banner on the case, indicating caseworker review. And I'll show a report of those in just a second here. One important point to note, the benefits are going to continue to roll. Just like all cases will convert, your benefits will continue to roll. This is another mantra, and Paul says this quite often. Your cases will continue to roll. So even though you have a yellow banner on the case, the previous benefit that came out of CalWIN, that benefit will continue to roll. And so we're testing that now, and we're seeing high volumes that are rolling. And so we're making sure that that is occurring. I believe it was mentioned a little bit earlier, but we will be working with our ISS team to make sure that they understand what's needed to support the counties and prepare a plan for the counties after go live and what that really means. And I'm going to talk about that in just a second here at its highest level. It's important that we understand, number one, which cases need to be reviewed and the plan for that review. Because in some cases, after we go live, there will be a COLA that is occurring in just a few short months. And so we want to make sure that the batch jobs will be picking up this data and using it the way it needs to be in its best state. And so in some cases, it may require, for the Wave 1 counties, there is a COLA run that's expected in December. And as we all know from Diane's presentation a little bit earlier, we're planning to go live at the end of October for Wave 1. So that's just I'll say a couple short months, a very quick turn. And so we want to make sure we have a plan. So we will work with our ISS team to inform them of everything. And then we'll also be working with the counties to make sure that they're well informed and ready. And the last here, we always expect to see process improvements. I want to say we've seen a lot of improvements, and we've taken what we've learned from C4 and we've directly applied it to the CalWIN conversion. So, we will see improved auto case review rates as we progress here. And so we will continue to keep an eye on those things. We scroll down to the next slide here. What this slide represents, and I'm going to apologize up front, maybe a bit of an eye chart, but what I really wanted to emphasize here is the reason for the mismatches on the left-hand column here. This really represents the work post go live that the caseworkers will need to review. Now the volumes will go down, and what I have in here is it's a percent of the total mismatch. So I don't have the numbers, but I have the percent. So you can see where the volumes are kind of emphasizing or focusing on. And so where our mismatch shows up is we see a program that was active in CalWIN, but when we run it with our converted data, it discontinues. Once again, we didn't save it, but this would represent something that we're highlighting for the caseworker. Please go review. And then the next two there is we see an 8 code mismatch, or we see a determination pending on a MAGI case or program respectively. So these are just areas where we want the counties to take a look at. Now, what we also have here, and as I mentioned, we'll be working with the ISS team. We have a work product that Mr. Paul Trisler and consortium and previous ISS teams from the C4 have put together that highlight the mismatch, the reason for the mismatch, an example, and what the worker action is, which is represented here, which is probably too difficult for you to see right now, but it's very succinct in that document. And what we'll be doing is working to make sure that that is communicated and understood so that there is no confusion after go live what is necessary. Caseworkers know what they need to do in general, but what we want to do is just make sure that they understand, what does this mean that you put it on a report for me? And that'll take me to I believe the last slide here. This is the report that we will be providing to the counties. As I mentioned, with every golden data set run, we run this auto case review process. The end result of that run is this report. And it shows the disposition of everything that I was just showing you on that previous screen. And so we will get this out to the counties. And as I mentioned, they'll clearly understand, because we will communicate and support them, what this means to them. So this report at its very high level, it's going to show the county, it's going to show the office, it's going to show the worker, the respective case and program that mismatched, and a little bit more information in terms of program status codes and a priority of that item that we worked with some of the other business analysts and policy experts on the CalSAWS team to kind of prioritize this so that they understand, is there one that has a higher priority than others? And so this is the report that we will be providing to the counties. A sample of this report is out there. I've got it in the link. However, this might be a PDF, so I'm happy to provide the link, but it's on the web portal. If anybody wanted to see an example of this report, they certainly can. Okay, Ethan, I said a lot there. I apologize for kind of laboring on, but I'll give it back to you.
Thank you. Well, at least the words are bigger than the letters.
Yeah.
All right, are there any questions or comments from PSC members?
Hi, good morning, Keith. This is James Lakota, Region 5. Quick question on that last item that you were talking about, the report that's going to be made post go live. When do you anticipate that report being available for Wave 1 counties? To your earlier point, they're waving in going live 10/31. And then also first, let me go left field. Thank you for really highlighting that these cases with the yellow banner are going to continue to receive benefits. But to your point, they're going to exception out of that batch run, and that major batch run first happening in December sometime. So it's critical that we have this short window to address these cases with that yellow banner, pretty much, the month of November and a little bit into December. When do you anticipate the post go live report being made available again to the Wave 1 counties?
Yeah, on that go live date at 10/31.
Okay.
Correct.
Thank you, Keith. Appreciate it.
James, any other questions from PSC members?
Hey, hi, Keith. This is Cindy from Kern. Hi, how are you?
Cindy, I already know your question.
Oh, okay.
You want a rerun of the C4 cases?
I was wondering that if it was.
No, I'd say a little ESP, but no, somebody put a bird in my ear there. Let me get back to you. The short answer is yes. We created a dashboard that has a current view of that. And I just need to make sure that you have access to that dashboard. And so I'll send it over your way.
Okay, great.
So you have access to that, okay?
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, it'd be nice to see where we're at and how we probably have things hanging out there we don't know about. So it'd be great.
Yeah, I'll get that to you before 10 o'clock, okay?
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Cindy. And I think Jesse from Moran also had the same line of thought. Any other questions from PSC members?
Ethan, thank you for seeing the chat. I was wondering if that will be available to all former C4 counties, or because that would be very helpful.
Yeah, let me work on that. We always do this short and a long answer. The short answer is yes, it's available to us today. The long answer is just making sure that the users are able to authenticate into that report. And so I'll work with my reports team to do that.
Thank you.
So,
Maybe a little bit of a longer answer on that. I can specifically get it to a person who requests it, but opening it up to everybody at large might just be a little bit longer for us. But let me work on that.
So Jesse, we'll make sure that it gets in the hands of all of the former C4 counties individually, or however we do that. We'll take that as an action item. We'll track back, next meeting and see how that's gotten closed out. But absolutely, all of the former C4 counties deserve that information, and we'll get it to them.
Okay.
Thanks, Keith.
No worries.
And Ethan.
Thanks, John. Any other questions from PSC members?
Yeah, I'm so sorry, Ethan. James Lakota, Region 5 again. Not a question, just a comment. And in here we have that the ISS team is going to work in prepping the wave counties to manage and tackle the yellow banner cases. I just want to put out from our own experience and us going live on 9/27 and having that big batch run just a couple short months after go live, that there were a lot of lessons learned from our county lens and perspective. And if there's anything that we can do to help support the ISS team in creating, again, whatever we're doing to help support those wave counties, we're happy to help and share our lessons learned, how we prioritize the yellow flag cases, yellow banner cases, excuse me. But there was a lot of effort, a lot of energy, a lot of resources committed to this. And again, we're happy to help and lend what we learned from tackling these cases and how we prioritize them, because there was definitely a very methodical approach that we took in tackling the different types of cases, the different programs, and if it had a SARS 7, if it had an RE, if it had certain income associated with the case. So again, happy to help and lend some of our expertise when it comes to that.
James, I'm going to say on behalf of the ISS team, we will gladly take that assistance. I know that there is a desire to share more lessons from the counties that have gone through the migration for C4. So we will definitely be reaching out for that guidance and appreciate it very much for the offer.
Yeah, absolutely. Look forward to hearing from you.
Great.
Okay. Any additional questions or comments from PSC members? Any questions, comments from the public? Okay, hearing none, we're going to talk about risks 262 and 270.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Abby Jarrett, and I'm the ClearBest Implementation QA Manager, and I will be sharing the QA perspective on this risk. The risk statement is the Cal counties may not be fully prepared for go live if they do not have sufficient or timely information from the ISS team. QA worked with the ISS team to identify the risk description, the mitigation steps, including the specific items that support the framework, such as the county work plan, county readiness checklist, and toolkits. If the counties do not have a framework within which to prepare, they may not be ready for cutover. QA has observed that we have the tools in place, but counties are uncertain on how to do things and when, and counties are looking to the project for guidance. We've heard from counties that they don't understand everything that they need to do to prepare for go live and how all of the pieces and parts fit together. One example is the readiness checklist. Counties understand their checklist, but in some cases, we've heard that they don't feel that there's enough detail there. QA has recommended proactive management of readiness activities, an updated delivery strategy to provide materials and help counties prepare, clear communication and timelines for what is needed to be completed by when, and refinement of the initial framework to capture the essential tasks, activities, and understanding of what counties need to prepare for go live. We also recommended early conversations on the transition from the current state to the future state and clear direction. So we are acknowledging the county feedback and concerns by elevating this risk level to high and addressing it through refinement of our mitigations. Rachel will share the mitigations next, so I'll hand this off to Rachel now. Thank you.
Thanks, Abby. Wanted to just ground this conversation that Abby had talked about two pieces that are essential to part of that framework, which is the county work plan and the county readiness checklist. Those two tools are used essentially to identify the what needs to be done and when something needs to be done by the counties. There are items that need to be modified that we will be getting out to the counties as part of updates to the county work plans, as well as to updates to the county readiness checklist. And I want to talk through what a couple of those items are. We have heard from the counties that some of the requests that they are looking for are not just the what and the when, but how a particular activity needs to be completed. And an example of this that we have heard from the counties is around task configuration and task management. There is a need for the counties to understand how to actually configure tasks, not just what they need to configure and when, but how they need to configure. And so the team is going back to incorporate what we're referring to as learning dependencies and approach dependencies, where there's a walkthrough that's conducted of how to do these items so that the counties are prepared. So these learning dependency tasks and approach walkthrough tasks are one item that's going to be getting added to the county work plans, as well as their respective implementation readiness checklists if they are needed. The second item that's being added to the work plans and to the checklist is that as the project is evolving, there are what we call rolling 30-day updates. And so there is information for activities that are taking place in later months that additional details are being provided. And so the team is making updates to the work plans and the checklist as some of the more details around the tasks are provided. So there are placeholders in the plans, there are placeholders in the checklist, but some of that detail of the things around the how is something that's being done on a rolling 30-day basis. The intent is to give the counties at least a 60-month heads up on some of those items, but every 30 days we're expanding and extending the detailed tasks that are in the work plan. The third item is that we have heard from the counties very specific areas of CalSAWS that there is a need to dive in deeper to, so that the counties can understand the what a little bit more. Two of them that are currently in progress are around ad hoc reporting. And I had mentioned on 269, that was risk 269, that the counties had expressed that there was concern around the ability to refactor their ad hoc reports prior to go live. And so there has been a set of education sessions that have been conducted for ad hoc reporting. The counties have also been provided, these are the Wave 1 counties, have also been provided a list of the CalSAWS reports that are available, and there's a fit gap that was being conducted to determine if the reports that are in the counties today and the reports in CalSAWS align, or if there is a gap, to really understand what the need is for these reports to be created by October. The next step in that is to look at those reports, which ones have to be produced in October, which ones might be an annual report. So to really prioritize when those reports need to be made available. And then from that, there will be a discussion with the ISS project team in the county around if there's support that is needed for the county to actually complete those ad hoc reporting activities prior to go live. And so that's one of the items that we're conducting a focused set of sessions for. And we've heard, I would say, positive feedback that has been coming from the Wave 1 counties to dive in a bit deeper into the what of some of these items. Security is another area that there have been requests around understanding how the counties need to make sure that they're maintaining their roles and their individuals assigned to roles relative to when conversion is going to happen. So there's been a series of education sessions around security that will then follow a set of sessions around how to understand how to map security roles that will be next as a set of activities. There are also, and I'm going to walk through these, a couple of other areas that we have heard from the counties that will be upcoming as well. We are going to be having focus sessions on task management and associated workload management, on document routing rules, on lobby management. The asks have been largely around helping to understand kiosk setup. When do I need to procure something? How is it going to be procured? How do I test it? How do I validate it? So there will be upcoming sessions on lobby management, on imaging, help desk, and fiscal are the other areas. In addition to that, all of the focus sessions, moving forward, we are going to be conducting walkthroughs with the counties. Right now, this is handled by the TOS teams to walk through key activities that are coming up for the month. And we'll be looking at what was intended to be started for the month, what was supposed to be finished, and any ongoing activities so that we can get updates from the counties and understand if there are any areas where we need to further dive into. So if we move to the next slide, I'll give a little bit of an overview of the checklist piece. So I had talked about the readiness checklist. And what are we doing with this readiness checklist as the counties are completing their activities? The readiness checklist is being incorporated into a dashboard, and that dashboard is in a tool called JIRA. The TOS team is taking what the counties are providing to them, and they are updating the dashboard so we get a view from a wave-based view as well as a county-based view of all of the items that are on the checklist to understand what's in progress, what hasn't started, what is done. This is provided as an extract to the county so they can actually get access to this, the updated dashboard in an Excel format. One thing that we are going to be adding is late start and late completions to the dashboard so that we can ongoing monitor to see where we are relative to the county's progress that's expected based off of the checklist and the work plan. And Abby, I'm going to turn it back over to you and we can get into 270.
Thanks, Rachel. So I'm going to be sharing the QA perspective on 270, risk 270 as well. The risk statement is if organizational change management does not have sufficient information and resources to create change discussion guides, or what we call CDGs, and counties do not have adequate time to review and provide feedback, the delivery timeframe and level of detail might be impacted. County to be process documentation is leveraged to create the CDGs. The source for the change discussion guides is to be documentation, which puts additional importance on the accuracy of the new process flows. Some counties have stated that business process reengineering 2B and the initial draft CDGs do not capture the level of detail needed to understand the new processes and the changes. Between now and March 29th, the OCM team must create or refine change discussion guides. Wave 1 counties review and provide feedback, and then OCM incorporates the county comments. Wave 1 final versions are due to be submitted on April 21st, and the change discussion guides must be finalized by May 20th, which is 2 weeks prior to the start of early training. Next slide, please. As we stated earlier, counties have voiced that there is not enough detail to support their needs. QA found that the BPR documentation in early waves needed additional information. We observed that there was a number of open items in the Wave 1 2B documentation, specifically pending decisions that need to be closed out. Additionally, process improvements and automation opportunities needed to be discussed and confirmed with the county. And this new and different information could change a county's future process. To address the 2B and CDG observations, QA suggested joint BPR and OCM working sessions to refine the new county processes, address the open items, and confirm the change impacts. And the team is in progress with this. The working sessions have a very tight schedule, and with the additional activity of BPR refactoring being incorporated into the working sessions, there is still a question of whether or not the change discussion guides will be completed on time and useful for counties, and this is why the risk is being elevated to a high level. Now I'm going to hand it over to Rachel, who will talk about mitigation steps.
Thanks, Abby. As Abby had pointed out, this risk right now is focused on the Wave 1 counties. And I wanted to emphasize that as there is time in the schedule for the change discussion guides to be elaborated for the subsequent waves. And so this is really specific right now to the Wave 1 counties. If we could go to the next slide. Abby had mentioned that some of the things that we've done prior to this mitigation is we solicited some feedback from the counties, and we heard a variety of things. And it was important for us to get a draft into the hands of the counties to get some early feedback. And part of that was because there were differences in viewpoints and understanding what would actually be the content of that change discussion guide. So if we think about the North Star of what the change discussion guide's intent is. The intent is to have the change discussion guide be available to supervisors in advance of training so that the supervisors can have a very rich conversation with their teams about how their role is going to change relative to CalSAWS and how it's going to change around their day-to-day processes around CalSAWS. What is really going to be different? And one of the big nuggets, I'll say, that we heard from the counties was that the earlier draft didn't focus enough on the change. And you think that's inherent in the name of the guide, is that it's the change discussion guide, that it almost intended to represent everything that someone needs to do as opposed to just focusing on the change. And when we think about all the information that's coming to the counties, we really want to make sure that the messages are very honed and targeted, because it can easily get overwhelming if there's too much information and it's not necessarily focusing on what's going to change for them. The things that are going to stay the same really needed to be removed from this effort. So Abby had talked about by the 29th of March, what it is that we're doing. So we are going back to what we're calling refactoring sessions of the business process flows to address some of the items that were outstanding county decisions that had not been made as part of the first walkthrough when we were putting together the business process flows. The team is looking at those changes changes to determine if there's something that needs to be then incorporated into the change discussion guide. And so they're inventorying all of these changes through the conversations for where there were outstanding clarifications, or to be very frank, where there's new information that has been received. There has been information that sometimes had not been available at the time that the team is now incorporating and going back and providing the counties with that detail. We do have a cross section of members that are involved in these sessions, ranging from our quality assurance vendor to people from training to people from the system integrator to the ISS team. So we've got SMEs that are out supporting the counties and making sure that the questions that they have in order to make these decisions are made, and we do them timely. There are a set of new flows that the team is also walking through as well. We did hear loud and clear from the C4 counties that the process to grant CBOs access to BenefitsCal is something that needed to be documented. And so the team is going back and making sure that those flows are actually added as well. They were not originally in the list. So that's happening over the course of the next couple of weeks. Then the team is using those changes that have been identified through those process sessions to update and revise the baseline set of change discussion guides that the team had drafted earlier. And we're updating that on a daily basis as the team is coming out of these process sessions. At the end of the month, the change discussion guides will be formally submitted for review and approval. And we've got a 1-month period for review and approval to rectify anything that has outstanding clarifications or comments. And it needs to be conducted and completed. The finalization of these change discussion guides has got to happen no later than 5/20. And why that date is important is that is 2 weeks before the start of early learning. And that is the date by which we need to have these change discussion guides into a final state so that the supervisors can have their conversations. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Ethan. Lot of information there, but wanted to turn it back over to you.
Great, thank you. Any PSC members have questions or comments?
Hey, Ethan, this is Clarissa. Just a couple of questions. On the focus sessions, Rachel.
Yes.
Did you mention call center? I might have missed it. Was there going to be a focus session for the call center functionality?
There have been ongoing sessions, Clarissa, a separate, I'll say, a thread for that. I can add it to the list. I know it's been ongoing that there are contact center, but let me add that one to the list.
Perfect. Rachel, do you have a comprehensive list of what focus sessions are going to be, and when do you anticipate those to happen?
We're going to be publishing, Clarissa, this is right now for the Wave 1 counties. So we're going to be publishing the dates associated with these sessions this coming Monday for anything that has not already been covered. So ad hoc and security, those dates have already been published, but the rest of them will do this coming Monday. We do know that there is interest in the subsequent waves to have similar dialogue. And so I will get back to you all on what that looks like for the subsequent waves. Right now, we're working on getting the prioritization is to get the Wave 1 counties this information so we get those change discussion guides done.
Oh, so are you saying that the focus sessions are just for the Wave 1 counties and the other waves are not invited?
They are. Yeah,
Okay.
they are. And the reason why I will say, Clarissa, is these focused conversations that we have been having is really focused on getting their processes and their information in place. And so there will be upcoming sessions that we will be doing for the subsequent waves. Some of these are very specific to county processes, like lobby management as an example. A lot of the counties want to have a very targeted conversation. Same with fiscal. We've heard that each county wants to have a very targeted conversation about fiscal. And so we're going to be rotating through these topics because there is uniqueness within each of the counties for some of these.
So you will run focused sessions prior to each wave going live?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And the intent is, how far ahead is that happening?
So these are going to be, Clarissa, in tandem with their business process discussions. We do need to go back with waves 2 through 4 who have already been through this and circle back with waves 2 through 4 because these conversations did not happen with 2 through 4 in this level of detail. Waves 5 through 6, the business process flows have not been started yet, but it's going to be a fast follower right after their business process sessions as well. So it should give the county sufficient time for the future waves to make sure that they're getting the information that they need.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, Rachel, that as the different counties go live in the different waves, that we have sufficient time for the focused sessions before the change discussion guides get formulated and before we get ready to go out to training. So that timing is critical as the waves move forward.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And then another thing, Rachel, on procurement, you mentioned earlier, I think when you were talking about the lobby management, maybe it was part of the focus sessions that we will be alerted of what kiosks need to be bought and how much those are and when to buy those, things like that. Correct. Is there a way for us as counties, because we need to budget as we move forward, right? A list of the things that we all need to buy, an estimated cost of that, and when do we need to buy those, particularly because we're running into a budget cycle and I need to make sure I'm letting my finance folks know when to budget for those things. So that would be very helpful, very critical for us from a budgetary perspective.
Got it. Okay. I'm taking that one a note on the cost piece. Let me take
Perfect.
one as a
And
note.
then one last thing, it's just a clarification. You mentioned earlier about the supervisors using the change discussion guides to talk with their staff about their role changing. I just want to clarify, the role isn't necessarily changing. It's the tool that they use in order to function within the classification that they're in today, right?
Fair. Yes,
the tool is changing, the role may not be changing.
That
So I
is
just wanna
fair.
make that
Yes,
clarification.
got it. That is 100. I will alter that, but yes, I think the sentiment that you just articulated is what I was trying to convey. So I got it. Yes.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thanks, Clarissa.
Okay, thank you, Clarissa and Rachel. Any additional questions, comments from PSC members?
Ethan, this is Jesse from Region 1. Just first, thank you, Rachel, and to the team for incorporating the feedback about highlighting changes. I think that was a specific area of weakness when we were going through our journey, the 39 counties. I did want to highlight something that came up in Region 1 conversations around this process, learning about functionalities like document routing rules really early on, because they have such an impact on workflow and business process. And I think some of the counties were like, whoa, like, wait a minute, we're not aware of that. We really need to know about those kinds of functionality that already exists in CalSAWS. So I just wanted to highlight that for the other waves, because that was a really good conversation point within our region as they think about on being under wave.
Thanks, Jesse. And I'll tell you, one of the things, even as a precursor to that we've heard from the counties is understanding what are the document types that are in CalSAWS versus what were in CalWin is something that we've heard is a precursor to get that foundational understanding before we even get into how they're routed. So that was something that we've heard loud and clear that we're bringing back to the counties as well. But thank you for that feedback.
Okay. Any additional questions, comments from PSC members? Hearing none, any questions, comments from the public? Okay, we're going to move into the update on production CalSAWS imaging solution and LA County migration.
All right, thank you, Ethan. Let's move on to the next page. So the way I'm going to structure the update today is taking a look at first a framework of the impact on the C4 counties and the focus that the team has had on resolving defects that will make their process easier and reduce and increase the effectiveness and the efficiency. So in the previous PSC, I had reported on a series of defects that were in the pipeline to be resolved that had material impacts on document visibility, document searchability, delays in workflow, and impacts to usability. I'm happy to report that all of those defects have been implemented in production today, and we're confirming with the C4 counties that they're seeing the benefit as well of the fact that we've been able to decommission workarounds associated with those defects. And so that's going out through the enhanced communication channel, as well as we continue to have site visits by project team members to work with the county workers. So good news there. If we move on to the next slide, please. So then additionally, there was a couple other defects that were enhancements actually that went in as well. And so one of those was a technical change to reduce contention or basically conflict that was occurring and slowing the system down. And the other one was around the barcode web service logic to return barcodes that didn't have an active program. So both of those were also implemented March 11th, roughly a week ago. So again, really focusing on how we improve the C4 counties experience on this. We move on to the next slide. So as we look forward, what we're focusing on is continuing to identify and address those high priority defects. And so we're going through continuous review of those defects, prioritization, working with the Highland vendor on working on through implementation dates. And so we have the next wave that we'll be able to share with the C4 counties with the Friday digest that goes out tomorrow, as we've received a set of dates from the Highland vendor on the next set of defects, and we'll be scheduling those into weekly releases. In parallel, we're continuing to run performance tests in preparation for the Los Angeles go live, as well as looking forward to the 58 county go live. And that's to, one, protect the existing production counties, the 39, from seeing deterioration of the experience when LA County volume is added to it, as well as confirm from an LA County perspective how the system will be supporting their processes for working through the cases. And the next wave that we'll have, and I'll go into this a little further detail, we'll have incremental steps as to the load levels that will be placed on the system in that performance test. The second point that we're focusing in on is assessing our system queues. So these are the queues that the administrators, the system administrators use, and looking for the exceptions where the images are ending up in either what's called the admin exception or our other queues, and seeing if there's other defects that are causing those images to end up there, and continuing to focus on removing that friction out of the system so that the images smoothly flow through workflow and get to the task generation. So there's a first wave on the admin exception that we're targeting to complete at the end of this week. And then the others, that analysis will be completed by the 1st of April. So as we look at our defects, that gets into our fourth priority. That's really looking at what's remaining and prioritizing to the top, the first in, those that have the most material impact on the county processing flows. And so we've worked with consortium and QA vendors to prioritize that list. We shared that list with Highland. Highland has responded back to us with which can be, or the list of those defects that will be closed by the 25th or April 25th, which is the LA go live, as well as those that may tail on beyond the 25th. And so it's giving that visibility to understand what the roadmap is for further stabilization. And the other component of this is we'll be meeting with Los Angeles as well to see how those defects integrate or impact their current processing flow for the go live, so that feeds into that go live criteria. If we move on to the next slide, please. So when in doing our enhanced end-to-end performance testing, we are comparing those results to what we're seeing in production today. And what we did on this last round, which wrapped up in the first week of March, was we set an endurance test of running at 58 county load, which is basically 3 times the load that production is currently seeing. And that includes workflow coming in from both what would be the case scanners or the caseworkers and scanning or batch scanning capabilities, as well as those that are being submitted by applicants through BenefitsCal. And that all fed into that 50 county load. And so if you look at the left-hand side, we have 4 different touch points or call checkpoints within the process flow in the life cycle of an image, from initial capture to final task generation being complete. And we've captured timings in production around that. So and this is from a scanning perspective, what the time to open batch represents is when I'm scanning the image initially, it's taking 1 to 2 minutes for that. And then the time to review occurs after you press the submit button, which is then uploading that image to the repository. And we're seeing in production that's taking anywhere from 1 minute to 8 minutes. The reason why you see that length of time is it depends on the size of the image and how many pages that you have in it, as well as there's other variability that occurs with the network, et cetera. So that's why you see that type of range. The next step is really around barcoded flow to task generation. So that is if the document has a barcode on it, it goes through a different workflow, and it's usually taking 15 to 30 minutes for that image to complete that workflow, get to the task generation. And that's the point when the image can be opened and edited by the caseworker for changing metadata. It's important to note that time to view, so moving up one more, that time to view, the image is viewable by the caseworker. However, they are unable to modify the metadata on it. So there's that period from 1 to 8 minutes to the 15 to 30 minutes when the image is viewable, but it's not, the metadata is not allowed to be updated. You have to get through workflow and task generation before that image metadata can be updated. The final step is for those that lack the barcode. And so what we're seeing in production, that's between 30 and 60 minutes from the time of initial scan to workflow completion. That's going through the OCR process and getting through the workflow and getting to task generation. So from that component, we are looking at 30 to 60 minutes in that overall life cycle for the caseworker, and that's in production. What we saw in the 58 county load was the fact that for the initial scan, it was 15 seconds to 2 minutes. For the time to be able to view it, but not edit the metadata, it was 4 minutes to 13 minutes. And then where we saw with both barcode and the OCR flow was that it was taking up to 2 hours or more than 2 hours for it to complete workflow. And so that is obviously going to be an area of focus, because what we have is more detailed reporting in the back end where we could actually see where the choke point was in that workflow process. So that is where Highland's going to be focusing on removing that choke point so that the images do not back up. They flow through in a more timely fashion. Now, the point is, this is at the 58 county load, which was 3 times the volume. So from that perspective, obviously these results still indicate that there's more to be done on system performance. And those actions are also looking at how you shorten those first two, the time to open batch and the time to view, because we know that in talking to the counties, there's a very big emphasis on first call resolution. And so that is where we have the caseworker on the phone with the applicant. The applicant could be submitting images through BenefitsCal, and we want that caseworker to be able to view those images so that they can continue the processing of the case. And so that's where those first, or that time to view, really comes into play, and shortening that into less than a minute or a minute in order to help reduce the amount of hold time that occurs on the call from the applicant sending that image over BenefitsCal. So there's a number of items that the team is focusing on to further tune, and that will improve both the 39 counties that are currently using the solution, as well as Los Angeles County when they convert to the solution, and then extend that to the CalWIN counties when they come on as well. If we move on to the next slide, please. So this is really focusing on the BenefitsCal response times. And so if you look at the left-hand side, the time to view is less than 30 seconds from submission to being able to view the image. And then it's taking 15 to 30 minutes if it's barcoded to get through workflow and be able to be editable. And then the OCR, it goes 30 to 60 minutes. So that's what they're seeing in production today. If you scan, or if we look at the results out of the 58 county performance test, we again saw those 2 hour marks getting through task flow in 1 to 2 minutes to the time to view. So as I indicated on the first slide, that is the area we see that the time is not in BenefitsCal, it's actually spent within the imaging application. So it's more work for Highland to do to focus on it. We also had another scenario where we were looking at creating the new BenefitsCal applications. Again, the time to view is less than 30 seconds within the current C4 counties. And then with the 58 county load, it was again 1 to 2 minutes. So overall, we do see that there is more opportunity and that Highland is focusing on in order to improve those or reduce those response times and be able to get more, I'll say a shorter period between image submission and image viewing by that caseworker. We move on to the next slide, please. So as we look forward to our next round of the performance testing. Our key focus, and this is going to be occurring before the Los Angeles go live, and is going to be part of our green light criteria, is that they're focusing on reducing the workflow queue times. And so that is the pre-OCR, which is really the point of after the submission button is pressed within the application, as well as splitting out some of the messages so that they can bypass some of those areas. Because what we're seeing is that some of the queuing or the messages all end up in this initial queue, and that's creating the backlog. But there's an opportunity to split that out and send them on different processing paths to further make the flow of the images more efficient. Then in addition, we're looking at some of the changes in the execution of the actual test, in the fact that in some of the cases when we were executing the test, it was executed in such a way that looked like if you translate it into an actual user, that they may have pressed the submit button multiple times for the same image, which then increased the load. So we're looking at tuning that out as well so that it's really representative of one click, one submit. In addition, we're going to go through a tiered approach on this next test, so that instead of just going to a 58 county load at the start and staying at that level for the duration of the test, we're going to stair step and say 39 county load first, which is current representative of current production, stay there for a couple hours and executing and watching the system. Then the second wave is going to be 40 county load, which is in Los Angeles, or which represents 39 counties plus Los Angeles, and we'll stay there for another 2 hours. And then the last step is going to be 58 county load, which would represent the end state when we have all 58 counties. And so it's really one-time production is 39 county load, 2 times the volume represents 40 county load, and 3 times the volume would represent the 58 county load. So that way we'll be able to see more of where that potential break point is from a volume perspective, and be able to attribute that to say, is there immediate action required, or is there evolutionary action that needs to occur as we prepare for those CalWIN counties to come online? So the way that we're going to be preparing for this is, first step is that the team, which is going to be Highland, ClearBest, the consortium, and Accenture, are doing internal tests on the fixes that are being made to improve the performance. Then we will wrap in BenefitsCal. Again, we're doing more of an internal test. And we'll have a couple of series of those tests to see if there's other tuning that needs to occur before we then re-engaged with Los Angeles, to where Los Angeles has users that are participating in the test and viewing the transactions as we are applying the load to the system as well. So that way we are making efficient use of county worker time and really working through the kinks of the test prior to having the full-blown integrated. We move on to the next slide. So where we are on the other component is how we're doing with the import of actual LA data. And where we are with that is that we are basically up to date, meaning that the historical images have been converted. They have been loaded into the existing database. So if you look at production today, it actually has all of the Los Angeles images in the system as well with the 39. And then we're doing daily syncs, which is basically as new images are coming in on a daily basis, they are getting synchronized over into the CalSAWS and Highland imaging system. Let's move to the next slide, please. So in parallel to the performance testing, LA County's also been going through Model Office, which is validating the imaging system functionality against the actual flow of the CalSAWS Highland solution. And so 53 out of 54 have passed. One still remains in started and is pending the 2203 functionality testing completion, which has a series of 5 SCRs associated with it. And once that is implemented, which is coming up over the course of this weekend, then we'll be able to complete that model office testing for Los Angeles County. If we move on to the next slide. The other component that we're also looking at is the training completion of Los Angeles County workers. As of March 14th, so roughly 3 days ago, we were sitting at 44% complete of the targeted group. So this is going to continue to be a watch item and point of validation as we get closer to that April 25th date. We move on to the next slide. Ethan, I'll transition back to you to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you. Are there any any PSC members with questions or comments?
Ethan, this is Jessie from Region 1.
You.
Arnold, thank you so much for doing that very detailed dive and through all that data and really going through all the metrics. And I also wanted to thank the project. I'm really appreciating the enhanced weekly communication because it's been challenging in the past to try to find out which defect it is. So this is really, I'm like holding my printed copy. I print it every Friday. I have a timer that says, okay, now I have time to look for it and print it. So thank you for that. If it's okay, we can go back to the slide that shows the metrics around time to view.
Yes.
Because I think from a user standpoint, I just wanted to lift kind of the picture that our staff are expressing and experiencing. So I'm not seeing that.
If we could go, I think it might be closer to 39. So let's go up a couple more. A couple more. There we go. That's the one. Yes.
Yes. So thank you for this. I think the top line message for the counties is the lower this is, kind of every minute of our staff time that we're not waiting for an image to come up is so valuable. And when we think about handle time, and I'm really preaching to the choir, but I just really wanted to express this because it's so crucial every second and minute that we can cut down on this. The other thing I wanted to just ask is, I'm looking at some of these defects that I'm wondering, there's one that is 234519 that has to do with image sizes kind of enlarging. And I had a little bit of a freak out moment because I was like, oh no, because that was the cause of our problems initially. I think it was a different image file type, but these are now JPEGs. So I wanted to ask a comment, is that as big an issue? It says that the prior report, it's pending percentage of impact metric was pending as of last Friday. Do we have a good sense of whether this particular defect will cause issues when LA comes on board?
So I'll 2 parts. First, I'll address your initial conversation or observation around every second counts. So absolutely, yes. We recognize that every second counts, and yesterday we attended the Region 5 meeting where they shared some basically timings and some stopwatch. It says, in some cases we're seeing 30 seconds for an image to render. So this is already one that has been stored on the system and is being accessed by the caseworker when they're clicking on it within the case. And so that's 30 seconds. And so what we're doing there is we're actually have a meeting scheduled in the next couple of hours to sit down with one of our power users within San Bernardino County. And we're bringing multiple skills to the table for that troubleshooting, because when you're looking at that end user experience, that is what they are seeing when they're in the browser, at their laptop, at their desk. And so there's a number of handoffs that occur between the actual imaging system through the network to the browser before it actually paints on the screen. And so we're bringing the entire technical team in that can analyze that flow and see if there's something more than just the imaging system that's producing that lag. And so we're looking at the network how much the network is being utilized, is there efficient routing of the paths, so that we're really looking at this from a 360-degree view and that end user experience. So just to let all the counties know, that's the seriousness that we're treating this with, and trying to achieve that lowering of the performance. On that specific defect regarding the image, so yes, what we saw when we went live is that some of the images were coming through and they were exploding to 1 gigabyte, right? There's an 8 megabyte limit right now. The amount of time, or the amount of image expansion that we're seeing, is taking that 8 megabyte and potentially seeing it grow to 10 megabytes or 12 megabytes, which is significantly lower than the 1 gigabyte, which caused the system to choke. So from that perspective, the impact to the end user is it's going to take longer for that image to be pulled up and be viewable. And so it's a matter of 50% increase in size instead of thousands of percents of increase in size. So that's why it's prioritized lower. Now we are working with Highland, and we have potential dates for that to be implemented that we'll be able to share out in the next day to say when that will be resolved. So right now we're targeting to have it resolved prior to that, or basically as soon as possible before that 4/25 date.
Thank you, Arlen. That's reassuring. So I won't freak out too much about that particular defect. Now, then the other defects, and I'm not going to go through each and every one of them, but from a user standpoint, there are several defects that have to do with being able to locate an image. I think one was something to do with the county code not captured at initial point of capture. And I think no county code value set. Of course, for the end user, I'm thinking about as an office assistant or an eligibility worker. For them, the feeling is just, I can't find a document. So if you're on the phone with a client, the call center, it's a very frustrating experience. So I appreciate the level of detail of trying to go to the reason or source or root cause. Yet if you put everything in totality, the experience is, I just can't find it. And the counties are really trying to build that confidence in the system, given that the project has really invested in a lot of resources of best practices at OCR and how to look up things. So those things are kind of in tension, because we're telling folks, hey, it's getting better, system's getting better. Yet they're still I still can't find the thing that I imaged, how many minutes ago or how many hours ago.
Yes, and so we will be able to publish when those defects are being fixed, because that's part of the information that Highland's providing back to us as to the fixed dates for those defects. I know that those are definitely on that list, and I believe that they will also be complete before the 25th, but I'll be able to confirm that when we publish those fixed dates. The other things that we're going to continue to do are the site visits. So having the project team. So if there are specific offices where we're seeing more hotspots where it may be benefit for us to come out and visit and work through that, because I know there's been a lot of information going out and it's hard to keep it all straight and consolidated. So that's why we're using the Friday digests, as well as the notifications that when the defects are being fixed, that it's actually made it into production, sending out the CIT and the release notes associated with that, and get that disseminated down to the caseworkers. Because then that makes their job easier, because they don't have to think about the workarounds, because we fixed the root cause and they can use the system as it is intended.
Yes. Thank you so much, Arnold. And that's the end of my comments.
Thank you.
Hey, Arnold?
Yes, Dan.
Can I just add one thing to the discussion about the increase in image sizes? As Arnold, this is Dan Dean, the QA project manager, and we're working together with Accenture and Highland and Consortium on the imaging issues. And there's a bunch of stuff Arnold covered about what the project is doing from a tuning perspective on those ballooned images. There is also a best practices guide out there. There's activities that the counties can do to help reduce the chance of that happening. For example, if it's a color scan, there's a profile you can use. And if the county form types have the right fonts that are more readable, then the software is less likely to try to balloon the images. So we've worked to, the project has worked to send out that CIT, and it'll be something sent out for each of the CalWin ways as well. Just wanted to add that one piece to it, Arnold.
Thank you, Dan.
Okay, any more questions or comments from PSC members? Any questions or comments from the public?
Hi, this is Jennifer Tracy from the Advocates Group. I have a few questions.
Hi, Jennifer.
Hi. On the slide 38, where it showed the testing for BenefitsCal, I think the last time I asked about this, y'all said that right now the BenefitsCal document submissions are not going through the Highland system since they're already kind of tagged by the uploading person as like being a rent receipt or something. Is that still the case?
So all images actually are stored within the Highland system. So what they aren't doing is they aren't going through the component that's called brainware, which is the optical character recognition. So those BenefitsCal images do bypass that part, which shortens their overall processing time.
And is it the expectation that the BenefitsCal documents will eventually go through the brainware? And if so, what is the goal for the processing time before that happens?
So right in the short term, the answer is no, they will not, because we're capturing the metadata or the associated data that helps categorize that image at the point of capture. And then the caseworker, if necessary, can go back and modify that after it completes workflow. We are going to be looking at options, though, of potentially sending those sending those through the brainware, but that is a secondary and future analysis that's going to be complete. But for now, they will not.
Thank you. And then my last question. In December, we asked about the impact to consumers on these imaging defects, and we were told that there wasn't an impact on the consumer experience. And I'm wondering if that's still the CalSAWS assessment of the client experience, given just kind of what I'm hearing today about documents not being accessible. We heard from partners that consumers have had to be asked to resubmit their documents. So I'm just kind of curious for an updated perspective on the consumer impacts to the imaging defects.
Jen, this is John. The caseworkers have been doing a phenomenal job of working through and mitigating impact to clients as they've gone through. There isn't a systemic one item that says, yes, this is having an impact, or no, because the caseworkers are working through these items, looking at those things and doing their level set best not to impact eligibility. Has there been a caseworker that has requested a document that has already been submitted? I don't have a specific case, but I would render a guess of yes, that has taken place. And we're trying to work through these things to be able to do that. So there isn't one thing, but the caseworkers have been doing a phenomenal job working with us and working through this so that it doesn't impact eligibility. And there hasn't been anything systemic that we've heard that has impacted eligibility. It has impacted workers' efficiency to be able to go through these items, but that's where it stands. So it isn't really different than what we reported on before, but it has impacted workers' ability and the efficiency.
Yes, and I also do want to just acknowledge, I know the workers are doing a lot to make sure that folks can get the benefits that they need. So thank you to all of the counties for that.
Thank you, Jen. Are there any other comments from the public? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to the update for LA County migration to BenefitsCal.
Hi, everyone. Happy to share an update on where we are with the LA County transition to BenefitsCal. There are a few updates since these slides were finalized, and we'll voice over that together in this section. First, up at the top, We have the pass rate of the test cases that are planned for BenefitsCal, and we're actually at 100% passing right now. So that's an exciting update to share. We continue to be on track with regularly planned security and performance testing, and our communications are in a replanning mode. We proposed a replan of the distribution of emails, text messages, and mobile app push notifications, and we're working in conjunction with LA County and the consortium to finalize that new schedule and to start executing on that schedule and sending out more information. As John Bolley noted at the top of the call, the go live for BenefitsCal has transitioned from March to April 25th. And as part of that, this last week, we sent out a communication to all of the community-based organizations in LA to advise of the change in date, particularly those who had participated in an awareness or orientation session, so that folks were in the loop with the changing dates. The following slides that we'll run through next include some information about each section. So here are some additional details about testing. And as noted, we're now at 100% passing, and the status will be updated to reflect that in the next report. Let's proceed then to the next, if we could, and share around communications. As noted, we're working through a replan to really update that schedule of when we'll send out communications to the public. That's critically important, as those communications will help customers to understand the transition, what they'll need to do in BenefitsCal once LA is converted, and it'll also nudge them to submit any unsubmitted applications if they have some. Let's proceed to the next. Leave it the training update. Thank you very much. Training is complete for BenefitsCal. We hosted a number of train-the-trainer sessions, a specific deep dive on ForgeRock and delegated admin access, which prepares LA County staff to support CBO access requests so that they can process and give access to CBOs who request access post-go live. LA County has also loaded these materials to their LMS, and their staff is well trained as well. So we're really ready on this part of the project. Next slide, please. Thank you so much. Post-deployment plans here for us continue to remain in collaboration with the imaging project, the consortium, and CalSAWS projects. We'll have daily health check emails, daily Q&A calls to handle any expedited or prioritized items, and then transition those daily calls into twice weekly once everyone feels that we've moved into a stabilized status for the project. But we'll be there to support as ever. And I think if we proceed to the next slide, I believe this was the last for BenefitsCal. That's our update on LA County. Happy to answer any questions.
Hey, Gabby, obviously, if we go back to those dates for the post-production, they're updated with the reset date for go live. So we'll make sure that those are out as well. It's the same time frames, only it's moved from the from the 14th to the 25th of April.
That's right. We're also working to update cutover plans and orchestration across all partners to just shift those dates to the right. Yep.
Great. Thanks, Gabby.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from PSC members? Okay, hearing none. Are there any questions or comments from the public?
Hi, this is Jennifer Tracy from the Advocates Group.
Jennifer.
We appreciate the awareness session that was held in February, and I'm wondering if there's going to be another session made available for the CBOs. It seemed like there was a lot of information shared that was really helpful, but there were still a lot of questions, and I've noticed folks asking if there will be another opportunity. So can you speak to that?
John, did you want me to speak to that?
Yeah, if you can, that would be great.
Okay. Well, we did host one awareness webinar and shared out the materials. We see a robust use of the Ask CalSAWS tool for questions and answers, and we're answering those as they come in. So this time we had not planned for another CBO awareness session, but we can certainly take that back and consult with LA County on their preference.
Any other questions from the public? Okay, moving on to the next item, CalWIN Way 1 implementation readiness status and milestones.
All right, thanks, Ethan. We had talked about a number of the risks, but wanted to orient folks for the wave 1 counties as to what the counties are actually from a high level going to be doing between now and the month of October. And we have structured this in a way where there's 5 areas that we're going to really be anchoring this conversation. There are a number of activities that the counties need to absorb some knowledge, and we classify that as learn. There are a number of decisions that the counties need to make as well. Not all the decisions are made, so the counties are going to have to make some decisions. We talked in previous PSC meetings that there are opportunities for the counties to validate certain types of efforts throughout the timeline as we get to October. There's also some preparation activities that the counties need to do to make sure that we're ready for October. And then once we go live, there is this transition period that will take place. So I want to walk through from a high level what these look like for the counties. So if I look at what the counties are doing relative to learn, and this is, there's 3 major areas. Through the change discussion guides, which I spoke about previously, the counties really need to understand what those process changes are, and making sure that their staff are aware of what the changes are that are upcoming through the use of CalSAWS. The counties also are going to be going through a series of trainings, and there are web-based trainings that are self-paced, as well as acquiring knowledge of CalSAWS through instructor-led training. And that's going to take place between June and October of this year. And then the last area for learning is really around the individuals in the county that are going to be responsible for tech operations to get familiar with the CalSAWS processes for technical operations, for things like how do I address maybe a batch job that was running long. And they're waiting on a file as an example. And then also understanding the way that CalSAWS and the counties are going to communicate from that technical operations viewpoint. So there's some operations staff that will be learning those processes. On the decision piece, there's a couple of items. The counties need to work through decisions that will ultimately be documented as their county configurations. And these are things like we talked about before around document routing and what those rules are. This is about workflows as well, and tasks and how those get routed. And then there's some other items that need to be configured in the system for such things like mileage rates. The counties also need to make decisions around any updates to their user security. So I had mentioned before that there's ongoing maintenance that needs to take place around user security. And as people are changing their roles within the county, or as people are onboarding into the county, and making sure that those updates are actually maintained. And then lastly, Keith talked a little bit about those yellow banner cases, and we are going to take up the county on getting some feedback on how to address those yellow banner cases. But there needs to be a staffing plan that is decided as to how the county is going to go about prioritizing clearing out those yellow banner cases, how many staff are needed based off of what the number of yellow banner cases are going to be. And so that's another decision factor that the counties are going to have to make. We talked in a couple of previous PSC sessions about a number of validation opportunities. There's the opportunity to validate system functionality, and that is a UAT effort that is going to take place between the end of June and the beginning of September. There is fiscal interface testing that any county that has fiscal interfaces is required to participate in. So for the Wave 1 counties, it's all 3. It's a requirement to participate in fiscal interface testing. And then also there is CalSAWS API testing. There is only one API that one of the Wave 1 counties has selected, but that's required for that county to participate in the API testing to make sure that we've validated that that integration is working. There's an optional opportunity for the counties to validate their converted cases. And that's part of what's called county data validation, where the counties can go and review and make sure that the people, the programs are correct in an environment, just to do an overview of whether or not that conversion was successful and what they were expecting. And then lastly, we've talked about process simulation before, and this is the opportunity where the counties will have to go through a subset of flows that are high priority flows to make sure that the processes and the handoffs between different individuals involved in intake or different individuals that are involved in a renewal or recertification, that those handoffs are working correctly. And we have that planned at the same time that is in UAT. And we've noted a little bit of what we're anticipating the number of people from the counties that would partake in the activities. The team is working to make sure that we are not overlapping effort, not having redundant efforts, so that we can accommodate the process simulation work in UAT at the same time if there's the opportunity to address both. On the preparation side, there's 5 areas here, and the counties are going to be updating or preparing rather their policy and procedure manuals based off of the changes coming for CalSAWS. There are changes that the counties may have to make to their systems, their interfaces. I talked previously about reports. There may be changes to increase bandwidth in the form of their networks because, you know, as the CalSAWS system is coming on board, they may need a bigger, we call it a bigger pipe. There may be changes needed for hardware, whether it is scanners or desktops that may need to change within the county. And then just generally the sites need to be prepared as well. The counties are going to be preparing these data cleansing tasks that Keith had talked about earlier. And that is before go live, things that can be done to clean up the cases. There's also adjustments to user security that need to be done as well as part of what we're calling the county preparation activities. There are the configurations noted with mileage rates, the document routing rules, the tasks that I had mentioned before in that decision area. There is an effort for the county to prepare those as well. And preparing them basically means configuring them within CalSAWS. And that's the input of the county configurations. And then lastly, on the preparation front is leveraging some of the communications that the CalSAWS team is providing that they could tailor to their staff, tailor to the community-based organizations. Gabby has, talked before about BenefitsCal having communications that are available that can be tailored, and then also out to the public to make them aware of what's coming from a BenefitsCal viewpoint. And then lastly is around the transition. And the transition I mentioned is after we go live, that the counties will have the opportunity to do a click-through validation. So once it's gone live is to check and make sure that everything is functioning correctly from a click-through perspective, working on those yellow banner cases, and then coordinating with their TOS teams to make sure that the TOS teams are aware of what they're encountering that maybe needs to get some immediate attention or clarification as we move forward. So wanted to set that as the frame of what we have overarching for the counties across these 5 dimensions. If we go to the next slide, I'm going to go into a couple of areas in particular. If we think about learning decisions and preparation as it relates to getting the organization ready in the county, we're leveraging a number of efforts that have been completed for the C4 counties and for Los Angeles. And these include things like job aids, quick reference guides, the web-based trainings, fact sheets, the sandbox environment that's available for the counties to get familiar with CalSAWS, and then imaging related content. What the ISS team then appends to that foundational CalSAWS material is I talked about the work plans and the checklists before when we had discussed the risk. But then also they're adding to that a communications plan and sample materials. And then the team is adding in the activities associated with business process re-engineering, and that's in the form of flows that are being defined, inventorying all of the changes between the as-is and the to-be, and then identifying opportunities where there may be a place for more efficiencies that as the counties are defining these to-be states. ISS is then also developing the change discussion guides as we talked about before. They are establishing or providing guidance around the change network champions and supporting those change network champions in the counties so that they're ready. I had mentioned in the very beginning that we have a readiness survey that went out at T-9. And so providing that survey and then the results of that survey so the counties can understand where they're progressing relative to getting ready for the change in October. And then from a training viewpoint, the team is adding in instructor-led training materials. So there's the base web-based training materials, but they're adding in the instructor-led training materials and then providing that in two formats. One is a train the trainer session and early learning, and then there is the instructor-led training. And then the last item that is being added is the connection between the buddy counties, which is really important with these lessons learned that the C4 counties have had in LA as they've gone through their migrations. And then providing a conversion case review guide, which Keith had talked about before. There is the report that will be provided, but there's also a guide that will help the counties with understanding how to clear those yellow banners on the cases. And then we'll also be providing a staffing framework and template associated with doing that preparation activity for the counties around clearing out those yellow banner cases. And then what the counties are going to own relative to preparing their people in their organization is the policy and procedure manual, the communications, their staffing approach, any type of job description updates, and any county readiness updates and discussions. But that material that we'll make available will be used to support that for the county to tailor for their specific needs. So let's look at the timeline on the organizational readiness slide. If we could go to the next slide, please. I just wanted to point out a couple of items in the next 30 days, and that's what we're going to be as we go month to month in PSC, going to really look at what's happening within the next 30 days. So right now, the Wave 1 counties are working on those refactoring sessions with the ISS team and the rest of the CalSAWS team to close out any pending decisions and starting some configuration definition work right now. So these are the tasks and the workflows and the routing rules, and we're starting to do some of that configuration definition. The counties are also within the next 30 days going to participate in reviews of the change discussion guides. The results of the T-9 readiness survey are going to be available for the county so that they can see and start to look at recommendations about how to prepare for that next phase of the change. And then the last is, I had mentioned my intro earlier about the training curriculum reviews is something that the TAC is participating in for the next 30 days, and that will be an ongoing activity up through the actual training delivery. So let's move and shift gears from having our people ready to having our system ready. And there were county decisions that needed to be made. There were county validation activities and county preparation activities to have the system ready. And so I wanted to just walk through what this looks like. The counties are preparing and making changes to their system. They're providing extracts of their ancillary systems, extracts of their imaging or images, and they're performing case cleanup exercises. So they're preparing these and they're doing some preliminary cleanup activities. The counties are also going to be responsible for preparing for this county configuration and then making sure that the interfaces for fiscal are ready. And the one API that we have for Contra Costa is ready as well. And then the counties will participate in those validation or testing exercises to confirm the CalSAWS functionality, to review their data, their documents, their images, to look at their processes and make sure that their processes are solid in the way that they've been configured within CalSAWS for those high priority scenarios. And then also making sure that the fiscal interfaces and APIs are validated. So from a system viewpoint, let's look at the next 30 days. If we could go to the next slide, please. The next 30 days look like this. And I had mentioned that we've been doing some security education sessions. So the Wave 1 counties are attending these security education sessions and then working on completing an application security document that's going to help them with some of the later activities to maintain their security information. The counties are also providing some preliminary input. There's UAT has been asking for who's going to participate also in scenario development and script development. So that's in the next 30 days. The counties are continuing to support data cleansing activities The case review guide through 1 through 3 has been out, so there's ongoing cleanup that the counties are doing. The counties are also working on that preparation related to the image sample testing. So as the counties are extracting those images to put into CalSAWS, those are made available. And then lastly is getting confirmation on the call flow for contact center. And I know that we had had an earlier question about, is there going to be a focus topic on contact center? There are decisions that need to be made yet by the Wave 1 counties to get that call flow defined within the next 30 days. Okay, if we could move to the last slide on technical. So we've looked at system, we've looked at people, and now we're going to look at the technical side of things and what we need to have ready from a county viewpoint about being ready for CalSAWS. There's 3 areas. There are a number of CITs and curfews that the counties are needing to prepare and respond to, and these are related to security requirements, network requirements to understand what that bandwidth and pipe look like, business requirements and technical requirements. And we'll walk through what that timeline looks like in a moment. There's also then readiness and preparation for the counties around procuring and configuring their network if they need to expand it, if there's any additional software that they need to procure, and then hardware based off of the requirements that are defined within that curfew that's being sent out. And then lastly, in preparation is making sure that if there are technical operations manuals or procedures that need to be updated, the counties are going to be updating those technical operations guides, and then communications that need to be modified as well. And how the counties are going to validate that they're ready from a technical viewpoint is confirming that from a technical operations they're ready, that they're compliant from a security viewpoint before go live, that the integration partner test, which is specifically related to those fiscal interfaces, that there's readiness, that the information can be exchanged, the right level of security is there, and then also making sure that if there is hardware or software or network that needed to be procured, that it's configured appropriately and it's ready and ready for go live. So let's move to the next slide just to give a little view on the next 30 days. There's 2 particular items on this one. The next 30 days for the counties look at making sure that they're facilitating hardware installation for anything that needs to be done on site. That's once their hardware procurement is completed. So that's the next 30 days. And then also there was a curfew around the network architecture that had been sent out to the counties. We got feedback. There's a couple of things that need to be clarified to close out that network architecture understanding so the counties can determine what the next step is if they have to increase their network bandwidth. So that's what we look like for the Wave 1 readiness. Ethan, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions from PSC members? Any questions from the public? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to the next section, project support strategy for counties transitioning to CalSAWS reporting.
Good, thank you, Ethan. Okay, so another area of support that we as a project want to be able to provide to the CalWIN counties is support for the refactoring of their ad hoc reports and respectively peripheral systems. So this is linked to risk 269 that Arnold Malbec had discussed a little bit earlier in the project. And so the steps here 1 through 4 really are in alignment with our mitigation strategies to make sure that we're providing that adequate level of support. So I'll go through the list here. I'll probably go through it a little bit out of order because we've learned as we've gone on here as starting to execute a number of these steps with the counties. The first is an education session with the counties. And this falls into the form of many types of meetings that we have with each of the respective counties. First and foremost, we have a kickoff and discovery session with the counties. What we want them to understand is that we're here to support you, and here are the activities and meetings, the curriculum that we plan to go over with you as counties. with respect to this endeavor. So some of those things are number one, the initial kickoff. Number two, an overview of the Click Enterprise solution, the platform for reporting that CalSAWS uses, as well as an overview of state management operational reports. And we look at this from a two-way perspective. Number one, these are the reports that already exist in CalSAWS. And then number two, these are the reports that the counties are using from an ad hoc perspective in which they are planning to refactor. And when we're able to do this crosswalk, we're able to decipher whether or not if that report is already in the system, the counties won't need to refactor. So that's goodness for them. And so we go through this process. It's a very detailed process, but also a very necessary one because we don't want to be doing redundant work. Nobody does in this period of time, right, as we're leading up to the go live. So very important for us as we're going through that. Another step that we do here, and this really falls into the area of number three, there, refactoring, but we go through a number of discussions on conversion mapping. I have a team that's also responsible for the conversion mapping. Mr. Paul Trisler and resources from our team have done a walkthrough of the conversion mapping. And why is this important for the counties? It's important because some of the work that they're going to be doing has already been done, and we believe they can leverage the resources, and that conversion mapping report is exactly that. So they have an element that they're trying to map or refactor into CalSAWS. They can look at this report and say, if it's already been done, this is how they did it. So that's the way we can do it as well. May not always be 100%, but at least it helps. And we've seen that so far to date. The next is making sure that they have access to the CalSAWS data structures. And what is that? That really is, it's the tables and the columns that they will need to refactor to. And so they need to have that so that they can load it into an environment and they can do their refactoring and they can test their refactoring. And then lastly, having access to data, that really falls in that area of onboarding. We want to make sure that the counties have access to data, and we're working to provide them access to their data. As I mentioned earlier today, we've created Golden Data Set number 5 that represents a full 18 county data set. And we're looking to leverage that to make sure that they have access to data. Our plan here is that they would have access to this data in April for all counties so that they can continue on with their refactoring respectively. And then lastly, number 4 there, counties that just need more support, maybe more detailed support in the actual refactoring or creation of the reports. We want to leave this option available to them. It would be done via a county purchase, so that we could provide that level of dedicated support, but we want to make sure that that's an opportunity for the counties if and when they decide to use that. If we move on to the next slide here, we'll focus on Wave 1. Wave 1 is already well into this process. We started this in the month of February in the very beginning, and we've gone through the initial discovery kickoff. We've gone through a click overview, and we've gone through a number of the operational state and fiscal reports. So we're well on the way there. We've also did the overview of the data mapping report. As I mentioned, Mr. Paul Trisler and team have been able to support and facilitate that. So we also have a recording of that. So if anybody needs to go back to it, they can certainly go back to it. So our plan here for Wave 1, and I'll talk about the other counties in a second, is we want to get through all of this curriculum approximately 4 months before the go live for Wave 1 counties. And that's going to be in the May and June timeframe. We are on that plan here. And so I think we're making good progress. We've also identified a number of reports that they won't need to refactor. So it's reducing the inventory of reports that they thought they needed to refactor. So I think we're well on our way here. We'll continue to support the counties with any questions or concerns. Laura and her team and David Broom have done an excellent job of making sure that they're responding to the counties and then sending down to the teams where they need additional support. As I mentioned, we'll continue to support this. Wave 2 through 6 is the next slide, if we can go to that. Same curriculum, a different timeline. Our methodology would have stated that 6 months prior to go live, we had gone through all this curriculum. And that's what we want to do for the wave 2 through 6 counties. For waves 2 and 3, we're well on our way. So we are on the plan, so on schedule, I'd say. So we'll continue to do this. Many of these activities or I should say, some of these activities are in flight, and some of the activities have already been completed. As I mentioned, the data mapping report, that was completed. We have a recording of that. The access to the data, our plan is to have that by April. So and we have a meeting a little bit later this week to talk through some of the details of that. So making good progress here. The final slide, this really represents what the counties can expect as we proceed forward. Now, this really highlights the initial discovery sessions, and as you can see there, the waves 1, 2, and 3 are complete and in progress. For the most part, wave 2, this is a little dated now, but wave 2 is complete, and wave 3 is in progress at this point. So, but for waves 4, 5, and 6, this is the relative timeline that we can start to see. If you don't have meetings in your invites in your calendar boxes at this point, you will be getting them soon, but this is our plan. Ethan, this is our plan for supporting the ad hoc counties with respect to refactoring ad hoc reports and peripheral systems.
Okay, thank you, Keith. Are there any questions from PSC members? Okay, any questions from the public? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to our next item, CalSAWS release and policy update.
Good morning, everyone. This is Karen Rappinati doing a few updates on policy today. Starting with February of 2022. February is not a normal month that we do.
You went on silent, Karen.
Karen, we lost your audio. Lisa, maybe you could hop in if we can't get Karen's audio back.
Yes. Hello. Good morning, everyone. Lisa Salas here.
In.
Can you hear
Thank
me? Okay. Yes. So let me give a quick recap. So February was a busy month. We did have our February release as an integrated release with our Covered California partners, CalSAWS system. So all source systems and CalSAWS, we implemented changes as it related to the expanded coverage for older Californians. We also put in updates related to the postpartum care. Both of these have effective dates coming up, and we do have batch processes that we're running. Hi, Karen, I see you back there. You're still, I think, not coming through, so I'll keep going. We also had some key priority releases. We did the second part of our SSA COLA. The ESAP changes that went in, there was a batch process to update the reporting type for those impacted ESAP households, as well as we did run the batch process where the Medi-Cal population, to update the coverage for those individuals, postpartum coverage from 60 days to 365 days, a full year. And then finally, we ran the monthly process for the CalFresh emergency allotment to bring the households up to the maximum allotment there. We continue to run that pandemic-related process until we get direction otherwise from the state. And then Kern County is the pilot county for the state, for the safe drinking water pilot. That pilot was effective 3/1. Informing notices were sent, approval notices have been sent, and we are gearing up to send the first benefit out to 400 plus households for that drinking water benefit, and that will go out later this week. Next slide. March. So yesterday afternoon was the green light meeting for our March release. There are over, I think, 70 enhancements in that release. So we didn't list them all out here, but that release has been approved. So this Sunday, we will be deploying that to production. Some of the changes in there, a lot of policy items, again, related to the CalWorks 60-month time clock, applicant earned income disregard, as well as pregnancy special needs as it relates to the CalWorks population. So all of those have, we're putting in the eligibility related changes, the correspondence related changes, and there are future batch runs to make them effective prior to the relative policy effective date. For example, the CalWorks time clock is effective May 1st. Additionally, this release does have a large number of GAGR changes for our Calhoun counties, as as Arnold covered earlier. We did have a risk and do have a risk that we are tracking as we complete our development activities related to the GAGR scope for the Calhoun counties. This was our second to last major release where we are putting in that functionality. February has a lot more changes going in around time limits and batch processing. So we are well on our way to completing that functionality and readiness for the Calhoun UAT this summer. And then we did have another COLA. We do have a lot of COLAs this time of year, and we did run the FPL COLA at the beginning of March, around the 6th. And then you'll note there we continue to work on correspondence. We're adding a lot of Spanish translations to the state forms and notices of action in the system. That is an ongoing process for the coming months. Okay, if we keep going. So you'll see here, April, as I mentioned, a number of the policy changes we're putting in actually do have batch processes that are coming up this month. So I won't go over those again. As you heard from Gabby on the BenefitsCal update, there are releases coming up, the IRT API that will transmit that information to the portal. So we have been testing those changes with the BenefitsCal team, and that is ready to go, as well as we have more emergency allotment processes for the CalFresh household. Keep going. And then May, this release, once we deploy our 2203 release, we are wrapping up development activities. There's many more items in that release than I listed here, and we'll focus more on that in the coming months. But we do plan to start system testing this release at the end of this month. Again, more policy and that last big set of GAGR changes for the 18 Calhoun counties. And that's a quick recap and overview of our immediate priority releases as well as baseline releases. And we continue those on a frequent basis. So Karen, I don't know if you're back, if you had any other updates. Not seeing you online.
I am here, but thank you. I appreciate you jumping in. I waited all meeting and then Murphy's Law kicked in. So I had to call back in. So I apologize and thank you so much for taking it.
Yep. No problem at all. Back to you, Ethan.
All right, well, thank you, Lisa and Karen. Are there any questions or comments from PSC members? Questions or comments from the public? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to CalSAWS procurement update.
Thanks, Ethan. Let's go to the next slide. This outlines all of our dates. We're currently in the process of incorporating reviewer comments from consortium staff and RMs into the RFP, which will go to the state on March 24th. We have a briefing meeting with state sponsors on March 25th to walk them through the contents and the structure of the RFP. Moving along nicely. All the other dates are still on target, and we're getting plenty of interest from the various vendor community participants. That's the update, and back to you, Ethan.
Thank you, Tom. Are there any questions from PSC members? Questions or comments from the public? Okay, we're going to go on to the update on key QA activities.
Thank you, Ethan. This is Dan Dean, ClearBest QA Quality Assurance Manager. Take a deep breath, everyone. There's just 10 slides to go, and I think QA has 5 of those. Before I start, you'll recognize that some of the information we have on this slide is familiar. QA doesn't maintain a separate log of risks. We're part of the project. So often we are the drafter and the originator of the risks, but we work with the delivery partners and consortium and counties to come up with the right mitigations and reviews so we can present those details for you. So I'll try to just skip to the high levels on the things that have already been covered and add color where appropriate. Our first slide here is specifically in the area of implementation readiness. So after the system has been built and tested, getting everybody ready for go live, there's specifically 3 different risks we're managing in this area. You heard from Abby and Rachel earlier on 266, which covers the ISS team providing sufficient information that is relevant and fit for county purpose. And then risk 270 there on the right was very specific to the change discussion guides, and the level of detail as first identified was lacking, and measures have been put in place to add the level of detail in further reviews with the county. The one there in the middle is a overarching or apparent risk that has 8 sub-risks underneath it. The reason for this item is that each of those 8 risks can impact each other for overall go live. So if any one risk were to become an issue, we can pull levers in the other areas and plan in advance how we would react if those things are realized related to schedule, scope, and resources. Examples in the area of 268 are project readiness. So the things a project can control are performance items such as batch, analytics, and imaging, which were covered earlier, the conversion window and the time frame for that, as well as having the functionality ready for UAT at the right time. And then there's county readiness items such as the extract activities needed for imaging. Across the 18 Cowan counties, my memory is there's about 11 or 12 legacy systems. So we are, as a project, working with the counties to track those activities and make sure that the extract from the old systems are ready for the import to the new. And a second example of county readiness would be preparation of county staff and involvement with training activities. In the lower right-hand corner there, just to highlight that the QA team is part of the overall effort providing CalSAWS system knowledge to the implementation support and consortium teams. We do have some staff with previous experience in the area of CalWIN, C4, and LRS. So of course, the county is involved in those areas, the consortium is involved in those areas, and QA is another part of that mix. Next slide, please. We'll cover sort of the front end of the delivery lifecycle in the area of design and build. Starting with conversion, Keith covered the CDT risk, and specifically what we're monitoring there is the effort to address readiness for user acceptance test. We are using converted data, which will be a key factor for counties being ready for go live. We're working with the testing of CDT. We have a parallel independent test effort and working to confirm that the priority 1 or critical items are resolved before CDT completes, and that the high priority items or the P2s are completed before user acceptance start date. And then the balance of items, the mediums and the highs, the goal in those areas is to resolve them prior to go live. Clarissa asked the question about the 84-hour conversion window, and we've had that come up before. As a reminder for the C4, for the 39 counties, we did about a conversion of about 30% of California's caseload. And so sometimes the question is asked, well, why is this an issue for CalWIN, since there's 6 ways with 3 to 4 counties each? And the challenge there isn't necessarily purely the volume of data, because there would be a less overall volume, but it's the transformation, and that the CalWIN data model is very unlike the CalSAWS data model. So there's more program activity that has to process all that data. So we're working through the execution with the conversion team of the various golden data sets to get mock timings and proper projections for go live for each of the waves. The bottom half of this slide covers design build activities, and there's both DD&I and M&O going on, and both efforts are quite large. As an example, for release 2203 that is going out this Monday, I think it's about 22,000 hours of DD&I activity and about 17,000 hours of M&O. So very significant effort. And the charts here capture the amount of reviews that went on during the design activities to confirm that the SCRs that are being produced match either the requirements or in DD&I or each of the individual SCRs that have been spec'd in M&O. On the watch list side here, just highlighting a couple of things. Our UAT is going to be a 43 county UAT. So in the area of GAGR, we will have the GAGR data for the counties in wave 1. Wave 2 through wave 6 counties will be able to participate in that UAT, but would have to copy data from wave 1 or create their own specific to GAGR. As the rules will be there, the correspondence will be there. They'll just need to set up their offices and then set up their data to make that work. And we've also worked with the team to add, in addition to a converted data test, a county validation effort prior to wave 2 through 6. So as that data is converted, the counties will have an opportunity to process it prior to each of their go lives. And then the final bullet there in the bottom right-hand corner talks about integrated end-to-end processing. So an example here would be a customer submitting a document through BenefitsCal, CalSAWS receiving that document, getting it scanned and keyed into the imaging system so it can be found, and then processing through to interface partners, all that end-to-end activity that's in addition to each of those individual system tests. Next slide, please. In the area of technology, we are involved in the monthly production performance reviews in the areas that you see there, online batch analytics, as the SLA and the corresponding SLA compliance. For service desk reviews, that's about reviewing the aging of tickets and the service levels and response and resolution of those items. Under security, an example here of something that QA recently participated in and that the project action is highlighted in parentheses. An AWS 3 bucket is essentially a folder or a store of data, and those are created all the time. And previously, those things were having to be manually encrypted. There's a configuration we were able to identify and work with a consortium and Accenture and their AWS partners to ensure that those were automatically encrypted when new folders are created, so it takes the human error out of the process. Under imaging go live for LA, we're reviewing the performance results and resolution of defects. There has been some extended both load and endurance testing going on that was highlighted earlier. The Los Angeles team is involved in executing their county scripts that focus on business process, and QA was focused on ensuring that all the various file types, there's about half a dozen, and file sizes were executed more from a technical perspective. We reviewed training completion statistics, and those are now being tracked in a burn down to track progress to complete for over 10,000 users prior to go live. And then, as kind of mentioned earlier, we're confirming that the communication of imaging best practices are sent out, because there are a number of activities that projects are involved in, from a tuning and fix and enhancement process. There's also some best practices that can increase the hit rate for things like optical character recognition and minimize of file ballooning. On the M&O side, for imaging as currently live in the 39 counties, we have worked with Highland and Accenture and Consortium to put processes in place to promote peer review of updates to maintenance scripts. Those were previously done internal to Highland and are now including external partners, so we get more eyes on things. We expanded the impact analysis of the data restore incidents. Some may recall that in January, there was a data restore activity that occurred, and not all documents could be seen. That was resolved, and we expanded the analysis of the root cause of that to the entire imaging system and beyond the data restore. Found some additional documents working with Highland that were also resolved proactively, so they wouldn't become an issue later. And then we're reviewing the service level agreements as originally envisioned. There was a certain volume of OCR activity that was predicted to be performed. And some of those numbers have changed because of adjustments to the process, such as not automatically OCRing or processing documents from BenefitsCal, but relying on what the customer inputs on the document. So since those volumes are lower, we are seeking to update some of those SLAs. In the upper right, we're highlighting some quantity of security reviews that have occurred since January of 2021. This will be an ongoing and forever process. Bad actors change their attacks, and so we have to constantly provide updates and reviews to keep our security hygiene up to date. There's 4 more quarterly assessments, but monthly activities that occur as part of working activities. Next slide, please, is for test. With each of our system tests, there's also an independent test that goes on from a QA perspective. In the upper left-hand corner, we've highlighted the activities for 2203. That is going out Monday. So as you would expect, we're 100% executed and 100% tested at this point. We did highlight where we found most of our defects. The bulk of them were in GAGR. That's what you would expect because well over half of the DD&I effort for this release was in the area of GAGR, and it's a new function. And just as a reminder, this is stuff we found in test, which is where we want to find things. We find things in test, they aren't found into production, and those items have been resolved. In the lower left-hand corner, we are monitoring a trend where we did see an increase in the amount of defects found recently. That high bar there is for 2201, so that was the January release. We worked with Accenture on the root cause of this. Again, these were items that were found during test to avoid having them found in production, but we'd like to get back to norms of what the quality was. What we had here was more scope going into the system, but it wasn't a 75% increase in scope. There was also more demand on resources. So some of those resources that were helping with CDT would traditionally have helped in this area to keep defects down. And in the area of converted data test, you have unmasked data. So the approach to resolving that largely involves onshore resources. So Accenture has responded by backfilling with other resources so that the onshore resources that are focused on CDT, there's more resources behind them to support the application delivery while we're working with masked data. And then in the right-hand corner, we're working on the planning of UAT with county and consortium partners. We've projected about 1,200 scripts to be developed over the next 3 months. Just a public service announcement out there on behalf of Rachel Hernandez and Peggy and Saranjan and the UAT team. There are still openings on that team for script development. We're looking to fill. One of the approaches that we can do is put more project staff on it. We actually have an additional QA person involved, but there's nothing like having the county voice involved in those script development efforts. So I want to make sure I got that one out there. I think we have one more slide to go, specific to operational readiness and outcomes-based certification. This is a review scheduled with CMS currently targeted for May 10th. It's highlighted by the final bullet. And we work across all the teams to get the artifacts that our federal partners expect to review our status and updates as we work towards that final acceptance in April. I know Wendy's leading that. Did you have any color you wanted to add to that, Wendy?
Oh, I was just going to kind of give an update. I'm not sure how many people are actually aware of what outcomes-based certification is and what that really means. So just kind of a brief overview of this. So Holly Murphy and I have been managing the overall outcomes-based certification effort over the past year or more. And what this really is to, it feeds into and basically shows that we can continue to get our enhanced funding to support the migration efforts. So this really demonstrates how well CalSAWS, BenefitsCal, and Central Print, everything supports the CMS functions. So we actually started our operational readiness review last August. And that was about a month before we went live in September. And so the teams did a great job in preparing, honestly. We actually demonstrated how the system meets 25 eligibility enrollment outcomes and 21 standards and conditions that are established by CMS. We demonstrated system functionality for each of those, including round trips from an application starting in BenefitsCal, moving over to CalSAWS, and then sending it on to Central Print. The teams provided all kinds of artifacts from requirements, design, tests, defects, risk, security, implementation across the board, because we had to show not only how the system was designed, how it was tested, and how it was actually performing. So out of that review, CMS had a couple of suggestions for improving the system. One of those was around task management that was already implemented in November in the 2111 release. We have another one that's targeted for, and it's around electronic verifications, and it's actually targeted for the first quarter of 2024 after the final CalWIN wave cutover is completed. Right now, we're preparing for the certification review and collecting artifacts. And some of the updates that are for that are really specific to certification reviews, such as disaster recovery plans, system SLAs, service level agreements, and some other information that is just really specific to that final, and a lot of metrics and dashboards. One of the artifacts is the migration final acceptance certification deliverable, and that's being created and reviewed now. And so we'll be bringing back some information back. We have April JPA. It's part of the overall acceptance. So the board will be reviewing that, and in May, looking at some of the final acceptance. But we will be bringing it back as the status of this group as well in April. And then our certification review is scheduled for May 10th. So good luck to our teams as we get our final preparations and hopefully meet CMS's certification requirements. So thank you. Back to Dan and I think Ethan.
Thanks, Wendy. Ethan, back to you if there's any questions for QA.
Okay, great, thank you. Are there any questions from PSC members? Any questions or comments from the public? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to the update of key state IVNV activities.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Kayleen Lyman. I'm the project manager for PCG and the IVNV team. So the IVNV team is focusing our efforts on the 6 primary work streams as displayed on the slide. Within each work stream listed, there are key activities that our team has determined as being critical to the completion and success of the work stream. The core of IVNV's time and effort is spent reviewing relevant project documentation, work products, and deliverables, attending key meetings and work sessions, reviewing work products, monitoring development status, test progress, and defect resolution, and assessing the development of and performance against risk mitigation strategies. The first work stream is the imaging, stability, and performance. Some of the key activities our team is monitoring includes the project working on resolving the imaging production defects, as was described earlier in the meeting today, improvements to some of the queues and the OCR, and the ongoing performance tests using the 58 county load. The second area is the Los Angeles County cutover, which includes imaging and the BenefitsCal move for Los Angeles. IVNV is monitoring the training completion rates, communication updates as it moves towards that new April go live date. The third area is the CalWIN converted data testing and the defect resolution, the risk mitigation activities, and resolution of defects as a part of the upcoming golden data sets. The fourth area is the batch performance and the improvements to scale the batch up to 58 counties and maintain that 10-hour batch window. The fifth area is the CalWIN implementation readiness and how CalWIN counties are preparing to move from CalWIN to CalSAWS. IVNV is monitoring and reviewing the UAT planning and preparation activities, county communications, the change discussion guides, and contingency planning for CalWIN implementation. Final area is the IVMB is focusing on the ongoing development and implementation of CalSAWS and BenefitsCal translations for release 3.0 and the fast follower in May, and continued post-implementation support. Finally, in addition to the above work streams, the IVMB team continually monitors the project's risks and issues and their management processes. The project, the IVMB team continually does review the project's progress against their current risk mitigation strategies. That is my report from the IVMB team. I would be happy to answer any questions if anybody has any. If not, I will turn it back over to Ethan.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions from PSC members?
Who all supports along.
Okay, and not hearing any, are there any questions or comments from the public? Great, moving on to our state partners.
Thank you, Ethan. Good morning. This is Brandon Hansard from OSI. Just to give a quick overview of some of the activities that OSI has been managing. First is the CalSAWS January 2022 as needed IAPDU federal review process. So on February 28th, we've submitted the IAPDU to FNS and then followed with CMS submission on March 14th. And we want to thank CalSAWS for the walkthrough of the IAPDU on March 10th for the federal partners. OSI in joint work with CalSAWS and our McKinsey consulting team kicked off our phase 2 of an ANIM plan implementation on March 2nd. This is OSI's platform for budgeting, planning, expense tracking, and reporting. And as part of this phase, we're working on streamlining and automating the claims tracking and quarterly county share reporting functionality. We're continuing to work with state sponsors on finalization of the SAWS annual report to the legislature. And then one note, since OSI also manages the EBT contract, we're working with the vendor for continued support of the EBT program and the CalSAWS interfaces, and noting there have been production issues recently that have impacted the counties. We're ensuring both that those are remedied and we're implementing future process improvements to reduce those issues in the future. If there's no questions, I'll turn it over to CDSS.
Good morning. This is Cherie Sterling with CDSS. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. CDSS is currently working with CalFresh on the CalFresh COVID-19 Administrative Flexibility Waiver Transition Plan. This plan is meant to provide counties with an overview of anticipated changes as the state winds down on COVID-19 related administrative flexibilities. We're also working on EBT fraud and theft. And we continue work with SAWS and program partners on policy implementation and new budget items as they come available. That's all that I have. If there's no questions, I'll pass it to DHCS.
Hi, good morning. This is Katie Mead from DHCS. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So I do have a few updates. So I will hopefully make this as fast as I can. Just wanted to confirm that the older adult expansion, which otherwise grants full scope benefits to individuals ages 50 and older, is on target for a 5/1/2022 implementation date. DHCS this month will also be submitting the revised paper SS app to CMS for approval in March. There'll definitely be more to come there. In the course since the last time we met, DHCS has actually issued a few ACWDLs, so I'll just quickly review them for you. The ACWDL 22-01, again, that's ACWDL 22-01, was released to provide SAWS with updated MC 239 discontinuance NOAA language for benefits transitioning to covered California, who will have a health plan selected for them per the SB 260 requirements. ACWDL 22-03, again, that's ACWDL 22-03, was released to provide counties and SAWS with the updated FPL limits for 2022. DHCS is working on December 2021 lists of our Compact of Free Association, otherwise known as COFA cases, that need to be transitioned to full scope Medi-Cal aid codes. Those cases have been identified and the lists were sent to impacted counties this week. There will be additional information and additional training at the TRT meeting this April, or next month, next April, so sorry. And then regarding the postpartum expansion, there was an errata to MEDL 21-13, which was published on March 1st. A link to that errata was also added to the pregnancy page, the Medi-Cal pregnancy page on March 4th, 2022. If there are no questions, I will hand it back over to Ethan.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions of our state partners from PSC members? From the public? Okay, hearing none, we'll move into regional updates. And I'm going to ask that Region 2 go last. So I'll start with Region 1.
Thank you, Ethan. For Region 1, San Francisco, due to the Omicron surge, they went back to 100% telecommuting back in December. Their plan was to return back to the office on February 14 for 2 days a week, and that plan has been pushed back. For Santa Cruz and Solano counties, they completed their BPR 2B sessions and have submitted their feedback to the completed process maps. So now it's with the ISS team to respond and make any changes to that feedback. And just going briefly back to Santa Cruz, they've met with Deloitte to go over the training logistics, and they're working through the details of possible locations and how to structure and have adequate coverage at the office at the same time while they're doing that training. And for Alameda County, their leadership team and the ISS team have met with regards to the upcoming BPR 2B sessions. And their goal is for leadership to ensure that the ISS team captures and follows their vision of the sessions and the direction of the organization. And they have also implemented a virtual kiosk that allows customers to go to their website, access an online portal to submit documents, order EBT or BIC cards. And it mirrors their waiting room kiosk and has the same exact functionality, except it can be accessed from the web. At this point, I am handing it over to Clarissa Simon for the rest of the regional updates.
For San Mateo County, we just completed our BPR 2B sessions and we have submitted our feedback. And we've had great participation from our staff, great and active participation, which is always a good thing. For Solano County, just a little bit more to add for Solano. They visited Napa County on March 16th to view their kiosk for lobby management and client self-scanning. They're also finalizing their contract for document migration extraction. And due to staff movements such as retirements and promotions, they're updating various committee membership. With regards to COVID, their masking policy in the office has been relaxed, and only those that are unvaccinated are required to wear a mask, and those who voluntarily wish to continue. That's it for Region 1.
Great, thank you, Region 1. Region 3?
Hey, this is Rachel Ebel-Elliott, Region 3. So most of our updates have to do with staffing. Well, it's the reality. So for Butte County is reporting that actually they have a class of 5 CalWORKS eligibility staff that will complete training at the end of April. They have been recruiting for eligibility for CalFresh Medi-Cal and expect to have a new training class for those programs to start on April 4th. They are also looking at going back to in-person unit meetings, supervisor meetings, et cetera, in the next few weeks. And Butte County has also just completed their EVES review. Colusa County is recruiting for the following positions of case manager, eligibility specialist, and office assistant. Del Norte County also is reporting staffing issues from staff services managers, integrated caseworkers, employment and training workers, and eligibility staff. Also reports that as of February 23rd, their director position has been vacant. The assistant director, C. Tao, is currently serving as interim director for Del Norte. Glenn County has been recruiting for employment and training worker, has reported some difficulty in receiving applicants or applications for those positions, and is also recruiting for eligibility workers. Humboldt County reports that Monique Upshaw-Smith is serving as the interim deputy director, as Kelly Hampton retired on February 18th after 27 years of service. Kelly was also the previous PSC member for this, for our region. And they do have an eligibility specialist class starting this month as well. Lassen County has reported a 33% vacancy in their caseworker classifications. Mendocino County currently has an eligibility induction class in process. We have also instituted a continuous recruitment for eligibility worker, and we have completed our CalFresh management evaluation this week. Modoc County is reporting vacancy in the eligibility worker and clerical staff, and also difficulty in getting applications for those open positions. Shasta County reports that they just wrapped up a 2.5-day work group on eligibility worker recruitments and recruitment and retention through the Lean Six Sigma process. Trinity County reports that they completed their WPR audit the week of February 21st. Also completed their point in time count the same week, and is currently undergoing remodel in one of their offices. And those are the updates for Region 3. Thank you.
Thank you, Region 3. Region 4?
Good morning, this is Cindy from Region 4, and have a couple of updates here. So Fresno County participated in a demonstration on childcare by CalSAWS February 15th, and they've begun reviewing scenarios for childcare. They're also working with their SMEs to prepare for the upcoming BPR. In Kern County, we are going through a BPR session with the state, CalFresh Bureau, and the consultant, and we are getting ready for the design phase. We do have eligibility training classes starting due to lots of vacancies, and we have another class set to graduate April 22nd. We also are continuously recruiting. We are preparing for our ME review, which will start next week. And also wanted to report our director, Dina Murphy, has retired, and her last day was on Tuesday of this week. In Madera County, there's a new training class starting April 22nd with 10 new EWs on board. And they also had a civil rights review audit coming up in March. Mariposa County, Joe Lynch was appointed as the interim director. All staff and community members have attended a series of training around their systems of care approach. They have a continuing education training for eligibility staff on intake processing, a guide to the intake flow. They also continue to recruit for a system support analyst to fill a vacancy on their help desk, and openings for eligibility specialist 1, 2, and 3. Their PPOC, Laura Gann, is retiring in June after 23 years, and they are beginning the recruitment process. They also discussed COVID changes, various COVID changes, which are going by the guidelines issued by the state of California. And moving on to Merced County, they have a work group of employees who are working on engagement to discuss how to re-engage the welfare to work population. And they have a recommendation for a peer-to-peer training where members of the work group shared best practices with their colleagues. These trainings occurred earlier this month and were well received. Also to report out, their Deputy Director, Mary Ellen, retired in March after 38 years of services with Merced County, and Mary Ellen also was a former PSC member from Merced County. They have also begun teleworking again on a hybrid approach. San Luis Obispo County, the branch is in their third month of reviewing their business processes, moving towards more consistency in service delivery. Their Board of Supervisors approved funding for adult services home safe program, including a new social worker position for case management. In Stanislaus County, they had 2 classes of family services specialist trainees started on February 14th. 14 staff are designated for intake and 15 for ongoing. And those are the updates for Region 4. Thank you.
Thank you, Region 4. Region 5?
Good morning. For Region 5, we have the following updates. In Imperial County, all staff are back in the office as of February 28th. In Orange County, they shared that they are working on internal implementation planning for CalSAWS Go Live, and they expect to have their starting draft by the end of March. Riverside is reporting working to supply on-site support to LA County partners to transition fully to CalSAWS imaging and BenefitsCal. Continues with mass hiring of eligibility technicians and clerical for all programs. Santa Barbara hired 23 eligibility workers who are currently in training in their benefit service center, is working on standardizing of business processes across all district offices, especially in the area of clerical duties in order to prepare for CalSAWS. Volunteer staff participating in isolation and quarantine hotel efforts for COVID, positive homeless individuals being discharged from medical facilities. This was a multiple department effort. Ventura County continues to work through their business process diversity, equity, and inclusion review. They have reviewed 23 major business processes involving customer interactions were reviewed for countermeasures against issues of inclusion, issues of access, protection against discrimination, support of accountability, and racial disparity. The outcomes of reviews were documented and compared to those known future to state of CalSAWS. Of the process review, 22 are noted as continuing opportunities for improvement. They are now working through their recommendations. And lastly, here in San Diego, we completed our to-be process documentations. I would like to thank both the CalSAWS team, the Deloitte team, but especially the San Diego team for the great 4 weeks. The teams were able to review all documents many days, finishing ahead of time, allowing the teams to re-review some of those processes. The San Diego team is currently in the process of re-reviewing the final drafts with our subject matter experts so that we are able to review, ensure that they are complete and accurate before we provide final sign-off to the project. Also, the department has hired a deputy director, Ginny Hufford, and she will have oversight over our finance, budget, and contracts. And lastly, San Diego County completed their homeless point-in-time count, and we are waiting for those final numbers for the homeless numbers in our region. And Ethan, that's all that we have. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Region 6.
Hey, this is Luther. I don't hear Winna, so just a couple of things. One is just we continue to focus on further implementing the RE line and then also solidifying the call center. Obviously, the BenefitsCal prep is still underway here. And then the other things kind of going on more broadly is guaranteed income pilot. And then we're prepping for re-engagement of CalWorks participants at the conclusion of the emergency order at the end of next month. And then a couple other things would just be the local VITA programs started last month and is continuing this month, and then finishing up the homeless count. And I think I heard Winna, so she probably has a few things to add.
I was trying to take myself off mute. But we're also, continuing with the imaging solutions training for staff. We're also preparing for our upcoming MEs. And then we are looking to hire additional eligibility workers and eligibility supervisors to further support our enhancements of the RE line and our customer service center, as Luther previously mentioned. So that's it for Region 6 on the DPSS side.
Okay. Anyone else from Region 6? Okay, hearing none from Region 2. Alpine has hired a new deputy director, Aaron Dobbins. It appears many of our counties in our region are hiring in various classifications. Everybody seems to be looking for quite a few eligibility staff. Placer County has promoted Lisa Soto to fill the assistant director role. Let's see, Nancy O'Hara retired from Sutter, and Sean Corley is their interim health and human service director. Yolo County is looking for a senior ASA position, which is also the PPOC for Yolo County. And as John mentioned earlier, I will be stepping down as a PSC representative for the region, effective today or the end of this meeting, and Deputy Director Eduardo Almanero will be fulfilling my role. Are there any questions from PSC members? Any members of the public? Okay, in adjourning this meeting, I would like to thank the directors of Region 2 for trusting me to represent the region for almost 2 years. I'd also like to thank my fellow PSC members, our region managers, our regional managers, and the staff from CalSAWS for paving the way for this monumental project. Finally, I'd like to say a special thank you and a note of appreciation for my team here at the Department of Human Assistance for their dedication to this project and how informed they have kept me throughout this process. They are truly an amazing group and care deeply for the success of our county and for those who are here to serve. And on that note, thank you, and this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Ethan. Appreciate it.
Thank you.